Traveling the Vortex.
We've been kidnapped by the Doctor and have landed at episode number 41. And I have fire, therefore I am the leader of this tribe. And I'm Keith.
I have made fire. I am the leader of this tribe. And I'm Sean.
The leader with the fire. I don't know. I was going with that. I'm Glenn.
What's up, guys?
First week without New Who. How was you guys' withdrawal?
Painful.
I was jonesing a bit. In fact, I went back and watched the finale again.
How was your second viewing?
Still just as good.
Good.
Was it everything you'd hoped and more? Was it as glorious as you thought? Or?
It was more. It was good. It was a lot of fun. No, I mean, second time through, I thought maybe I'd catch things I didn't catch the first time, but no, I think I was so intent the first time on it that there was no surprises. It was quite enjoyable again. Matt Smith is a genius. I love him.
Yes, he is.
He's so cool. He has definitely supplanted himself now as my second favorite Doctor. He moved in front of David Tennant.
Yes.
I mean, he's been slowly doing that
Victory.
Anyway. He's been slowly getting there. But
Who's your favorite?
Tom Baker.
Okay, just checking.
What? I don't think nobody will get in front of Tom just because of who Tom is and because I grew up with Tom. But
Because he's your
it's
doctor.
the scarf, man. Scarves are cool.
You know, it's
Multicolored ones, particularly.
I told Keith I've been listening to the Big Finish audios, and I just finished starting at the beginning of the run. Of course, there was, I don't remember the names of them all, but there was the Multi-Doctor one, and there was a Fifth Doctor, and then a Sixth Doctor, and then another Fifth Doctor. And the Multi-Doctor one was good. All the rest of them were, they were okay. They weren't necessarily knocked out of the park, but they were enjoyable. But then I'm in the middle now of one called The Fearmonger, which is a Sylvester McCoy. Mm-hmm. Man, as soon as he spoke, they just like, and I was all kinds of excited. And I honestly don't know if it's just that this particular episode is maybe written better than the others, if it actually is that much better, or if I just really have that much of a hang-up on Sylvester McCoy. I don't care. I love listening to this guy's voice, and he speaks, and the guy that wrote it really, he threw a lot of R's in there, and McCoy starts rolling them.
Yeah.
It's exceedingly well done, and I'm just happy as a clam.
That reminds me of something. You called attention to that clip at, was it Dragon Con? No.
Yeah.
Was
it
it Dragon
Con?
Con.
Where they had him read that scene from Big Bang. Or no, not Big Bang. Pandorica opens. And you said, you just got chills, and it was...
I didn't get chills till the end when he started taking it seriously. I thought he did a really good job. In the beginning, he was too jokingly with it.
He did a fine job, but I didn't get the chills, and I certainly don't think he delivered it better than Matt.
No, I don't think he delivered it
no,
better
absolutely
than
not.
Matt.
No,
not at all.
but
It was just a different take on it, and it gave me
was a
chills
different
for
take.
what could have been.
Yeah,
for his
see,
Doctor.
and I didn't even see that because it was, I don't know, maybe because he did it too jokingly through the majority of it there. It just didn't work for me. Gosh, Sean, you're so anal about this computer.
You got stuff
Popcorn on it, I know. Jeez.
buttered popcorn on
It'll
my
go away.
aluminum.
It'll go away.
It's an aluminum falcon.
Yeah, speaking of, where are you, Mark?
That should be the name
we
for
were
your
waiting
computer.
for Mark's answers. He's probably gone back to watch it again.
Yeah, I didn't know there was going to be a quiz, and I
Make
have
sure he
to
gets the
study.
answers right.
Little does he know, there's a thing called Google.
Yeah.
He's halfway through the movie and goes, "Oh no! Why didn't I think of that?" Anyway, eventually we'll get answers from eventually. We're still holding
Eventually he'll get
we're
his
still
geek
holding
card
your
back.
geek card hostage here, Mark. So, hey, what's wrong with the adipose there? He's
fell
like
over.
falling over. Sean's got a really cool knitted adipose here
fix
that
it, Keith. You're the one knocked over.
Keith's girlfriend knitted for him, and then it's like laying on its side. He looks at me every week with his big smile. He's so
There
cute.
he is.
He's the knitted adipose.
It's because I pulled the beginnings box set out. That's why it fell over.
The knitted adipose is so much cuter than the stress toy that they actually released. That's
Oh yeah, the
marketed.
stress tie is actually a little scary looking.
He is a little scary looking. The knitted one's fantastic. We'll
I
post
look
another picture of
forward
the knitted
to,
adipose.
to getting to that, so she can make me one.
Oh yeah, you saw that's coming up.
I haven't
though.
seen
It's
it
coming
yet.
up.
It'll be
when
coming
we get
up.
back to it,
I know
There's so much that we've had to tiptoe. Or just not even.
She's looking forward to rewatching that episode too.
There's been a ton that we've tiptoed around anyway because we obviously knew this. But I thought for sure, okay, we've got 3 seasons down. He's up to here. We're set, and there's really not much left to do. And man, every discussion, every week, there's like, oh, it's like that one time when. Oh, wait, we can't talk about that because Keith hasn't seen any of season 4. It's like, man. Or the specials.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was something came up last week we wanted to talk about in the specials, but we couldn't.
I realized I came real close to towing that line of, oh, wait. No, I'm okay. And I started to press forward, and then I had to rethink about it and go, no, I don't think I am okay. I don't think we have got to that yet. So.
We'll get there. We'll eventually get there.
Well, it's kind of slow in the news this week.
Yeah, nothing real big.
I may have to turn in my geek card.
Why?
Oh, yeah.
We got together last night, Keith, Sarah, Mel, and I, to watch Return of the Jedi on Blu-ray, which we've been going through once a week.
I heard you fell asleep.
It wasn't so much that I fell asleep.
Well, no, when you're over there snoring with your mouth open and drool pouring outside your mouth, that's sleep.
I didn't see the drool, but he did snore a little.
That was the problem is we got to... I feel kind of the same about Jedi as I do about New Hope. The Tatooine stuff at the beginning is boring. I really don't care for Jabba's palace.
No.
And then it gets exciting for me a little bit, and then we get the Ewoks, and I don't care so much, but the space battle's cool, and okay, I'm good. I watched it this time, and I honestly don't know why. I thoroughly enjoyed sitting down and watch Jedi. Maybe it's just been that long since I've seen it. That the Jabba the Hutt scenes were... I was going along with them, and everything was cool, and this was fine and dandy and everything. And they got off the planet, and they got to Yoda, and Yoda started to talk, and I started to kind of drift off a little bit. Now, that scene drags.
It does. That's the only scene in that whole movie that drags.
And I knew that going
some
into
of the
it.
Ewok stuff, I think, drags.
No. It's all exciting. It's goofy, but it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
But I knew that going into it, so I was like, all right, I'm going to close my eyes. And I'm still listening to Yoda. I'm not asleep, I swear.
It's not like my wife. No. I'm just going to rest my eyes for a minute here.
I'll check my eyelids for holes.
Right.
And
I will freely admit when I zone out or fall asleep, and this wasn't it. I was listening to Yoda, and he was lulling me to sleep, but I was still conscious for it. But then I would wake myself up because I would realize that my breathing was changing, that I was getting to that, and I would startle myself awake because I didn't want to go to sleep. And I definitely didn't want to snore because I knew what you'd say.
I'm embarrassed to be even sitting at this table with you right now.
And I went through it, and and we got to the Ewoks, and I was fighting really hard.
Some of the heavy breathing that you just displayed for a decent amount of time before we got to the Ewoks.
And this is the thing. I remember all of it. I not because I've seen it, but just because I remember cracking an eye open and making sure that it was still where I thought we were. Now... One day, Keith and I sat down.
Do you remember me going out and smoking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I remember everything going on. We watched Ark in Space one night. We just wanted to pop in some, and he said, let's watch this. I was like, okay, I'm fine with that. I'll watch this one. And I completely, I woke up and was like, what happened? What'd you turn it off for? He's like, dude, it's over. It's like, what? How did I fall? He said, you were snoring. You were asleep through the whole thing. And I really didn't realize that I had passed. I knew I was tired. But this one I was conscious through, mostly conscious through all of it. Every time I would get to that point where my breathing would start to change and I would start to snore, I would startle myself back awake. And I finally got to the point 3PO's telling the story to the Ewoks, and we waited through that. And short hope's better than no help at all. And I grabbed Mel and said, "Okay, I'm calling it. It's a ball game
See,
at this point."
now
I'm
here,
ready.
To be honest, Sarah and I didn't continue much further after that.
Really,
she was really tired, and she was like, I don't know how much. She was a trooper. She stayed
and
awake.
She was totally awake through all of
that's
it.
just it, though. If you say, okay, I'm tired, not going to make it, and you shut it down, you go to bed,
yeah,
I have no problem with that,
stopped
Keith.
it right.
I have no quarrel with you or Sarah at all for that reason.
Yay!
Now.
But I did the same thing.
This is like, no, you were, I'm going to close my eyes here and listen to Yoda while he lulls me off from then on back.
While watching.
Okay, the last
you may
time,
not have fallen asleep,
the last time that I can remember even watching Star Wars with Sean, something similar happened. It wasn't to him, but I still blame him for it. It was his first wife, and we went to see the special editions in the theater.
Oh, good God. You can't blame me for that.
And we're sitting there because you sat next to her and you let her fall asleep. We're sitting there watching A New Hope. It's great. I remember it distinctly. It's
To defend Sean, you can only help so much.
It's
to
at
keep
the
him
it's
awake.
the battle where they're running through the halls. They're running from the stormtroopers, and we're all we're into this. And we had waited in line for like an hour and a half to get into this thing. It wasn't even opening night, I don't think, but we'd waited for an hour and a half to get in. We all go in, take our seats, sit down.
was
We're
opening
watching
night.
this thing. Was it?
Oh, yeah, we wouldn't have waited.
I can't imagine now we wouldn't have. Anyway, so we go and we sit there and all the way through, and they're running. It's one of the best scenes in the whole thing where they're escaping from the stormtroopers. Han runs down the one hall and goes around the corner, and there's all the stormtroopers. Well.
First time we see that.
Yeah, first time
Yeah.
we see that. Just incredible. And I'm just getting into it, and I'm just, it's so good, so good. And I hear, and it's coming from Sean's direction. And I thought, no way. I look over, and Carrie is asleep. And I couldn't believe it. And then I'm like
It's not
looking
like
at
it's
you
Lord
like,
of the
wake her
Rings.
up, wake her up. She can't sleep in this. And you let her sleep. Should have known that marriage was doomed.
That was just it. I let her sleep because I was married to her. You spoke a couple weeks back about feeding the dragon. I want to talk to you about waking the dragon. Wasn't going to happen.
Now, you know my wife. She slept through anything. She stayed away.
She
from
stayed
Star
away
Wars.
from,
Come on.
and we made several holy crap comments afterwards. That how did that work?
I could totally understand falling asleep through Lord of the Rings because they're so long, and they're much longer.
Yeah,
than
I
Star
couldn't
Wars.
do it, but I could see people doing it. Yeah,
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't.
I could see it, but
Yeah.
I think I did, but then again, I was laying on my couch watching them.
Oh well.
well, that's different.
Yeah,
I think I've fallen asleep to him playing on TBS late at night or something. But
Yeah, no, I felt bad doing it, but I did. I finally had to call it, and I woke Mel up, and because she dozed. I thought she was going to make it too, because she kind of the same way with Sarah. She's like, "Oh, I love Ewoks. I love Return of the Jedi." Okay, and she made it up too.
Mel has fallen asleep the last 2 times we sat down to watch them.
She hasn't made it.
Oh.
But
granted, it is a little late.
yeah, I mean,
at
we're
night.
not starting these things till midnight, 11:30 midnight.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
so.
and you do own them, so they can
Yeah,
be watched
yeah,
over and over.
yeah.
Okay, so have you watched yours yet? Or you don't own it?
No,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm still waiting.
The blinks are a little odd. The Ewok
I have
blinks?
seen the blinks,
But it only
yeah.
happens with Wicket, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Any
Well,
of the other Ewoks, you don't see them blink.
The first Wicket blink looks like his eyes do this. Where
From side to side?
it looks almost like they come side to side,
Oh,
right?
like Gil.
I didn't notice that.
Which I thought was really cool. All the rest of them are this way, and it's like,
It's like maybe they tried it one way and then they went, this looks better this way, and then
And
forgot to go
forgot
back and
one.
redo
Why
that one.
yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't make sense
It's
for
a little
them
more alien.
to blink. Well, yeah, but they're mammals, essentially. I mean,
Wait,
how many-
they're mammaloid.
mammaloid. Okay,
They're teddy bears.
they're teddy bears. How many mammals blink that way?
None that I know of.
See,
Yeah.
and I can't
It's
think of any
Star
off the
Wars.
top
This
of my
doesn't
head.
have to make sense. As I pointed out, it was
Well,
like
they're
here,
aliens.
We have an entire civilization, entire galaxy. We've got faster than light travel. We've got lightsabers. We've got all this cool stuff. All their holograms look like crap. They're all fuzzy, grainy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. What's up with that?
At least they stuck with that in the
Yeah.
prequels. Yeah, you're gonna.
They have better
Establish
ships, but the holograms aren't.
I want somebody. Lord Vader shows up, and some kid's down there at the bottom of the dial playing with the vertical hold or something. It was like stripes going up to.
A little bit of a flicker.
All 7 of our listeners are going, what's a vertical
What's
hold?
vertical hold? That was a dial on a TV.
What's a dial?
There were things called dials.
There were dials
A
on
long
TV.
time ago in a galaxy far, far away, televisions used to have knobs.
Click, click. Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you used to have to get up and walk across the room to change the channel.
No such thing as a
I
remote
remember
control.
those
I remember
days.
seeing movies about those.
The first time I ever saw a remote control.
Screw you.
I'm kidding.
First time I ever saw a remote control, I think we've talked about this before, but first time I ever saw a remote control was my grandparents bought a TV, a console TV. Anybody know what a console TV is? But a console TV, it was set in their living room, and they were elderly. I mean, they were elderly problems, so they bought one with a remote control. And this thing was 4 buttons, and you know what caused the channel to change? It wasn't infrared.
it was a cord, wasn't it?
No, these things had a tuning fork in them. I swear to God.
Really?
And you clicked the button, and based on the pitch, it either changed up or down, and you had to click through the channels. There was no typing in the number.
Yeah, no.
Click, click, or volumed up, or volume down, or power. That was it. 4 buttons. That was it.
The first remote control
Must have been 5 because one was up, one was down, one was up, one was down in power. So
yeah, the first remote control that was ever in the house was for our first VCR, which was a top loading unit. It was not in the door; it was an actual ching, and the door would go down, and it had a cable.
Had a cable, yeah. We had one.
And of course,
as well.
you couldn't sit close enough.
Right. Well, they never made those long enough. Yeah, you still had to sit on the coffee table in order to change the channel.
You still had to get up and cross to the remote.
Yeah, so the remote didn't come to you. No, I remember that too. But no, tuning forks. I thought that was clever. But
that is very cool.
Still 13 channels though. No UHF.
Yeah.
So. Anyway.
I can't talk. I just discovered that apparently we get digital.
You get the digital band, yeah. That was a revelation.
I came home. They were sitting on the couch before Friday Night Who, and they were watching TV. And it, I don't know what it was. Everybody Loves Raymond or something on one of the. And it took 15, 20 minutes.
I thought maybe you knew because you never said it. You walked to the door watching that. You never said anything for a while.
I walked Sarah out and walked in, and he was watching. And I was like, "How'd you get that?"
No, he said, "I didn't think we got cable anymore."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, you technically don't, but." For the listeners that we're going way off in a tangent here, we got to explain. Sean and Keith don't have cable TV per se. They've canceled their cable or never had it. I don't know which, but by the way, you can host the Oscars over here because you have it on. Yeah. No. Anyway, so they don't have any of the analog channels, but in Topeka we have a company called Cox Cable. And if you have cable internet...
The guys in Britain are going, I don't care.
If you have cable internet, there are the main free channels, the ones that come off air, broadcast channels, NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS, blah, 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 that actually come in on the digital tier. And I can't remember there's actually a name for that band, but they come in on those digital channels because that's the same frequency or level that the internet travels on. So they can't block those out, but they can cancel everything else out.
Like I said, we were there 15, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I looked up and said, wait a minute, how did we get TV? Because this is TV. This isn't like...
Well, I wondered if you were going to wait till a commercial came on, thinking maybe we were watching it on a download
Netflix
or something.
Yeah. No, I was clueless.
Thinking about it, I didn't have cable at my old place. I had internet. But I don't remember having those channels.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you go up through the hundreds?
I remember. I programmed. After I lost my cable, I scanned it, and nothing popped up.
Well, but were you on antenna or were you on cable? Did you think,
cable.
I don't have cable?
I did cable just to double check to see if they actually disconnected me.
No, you should have had those if you had your cable modem plugged into your TV.
Bizarre.
Or
cable coming. I immediately went over to Mel's and thought, I can watch a Chiefs game today because she's got cable, so I should be able to. When the TV is completely blocked out on her TV, I can't even select it. And then I realized, well, of course, it's not plugged in. We never bothered plugging it in.
Oh, yeah, the coaxial.
She doesn't have cable. Yeah. So I need to find like 600 feet of coaxial to run from the upstairs where the router is down to the television.
It shouldn't matter if it goes to the router.
You still have to run your coaxial. You still have to split from your router.
You
still have to run
that's
coaxial.
Why I didn't have it.
Yeah,
I was plugged in straight into the wall as opposed to through the modem.
No, you don't. You don't have to plug into the modem. Where the cable comes out of the wall, you put a splitter there, and the splitter goes to the TV and to the router. You're not coming out of the router.
It should work on multiple outputs, right? On multiple. If the cable essentially comes into the house at one place, splits to two different walls to the jacks. It should still work.
Well, it should unless when they disconnected your cable, wherever the splitter is outside,
they may have where my computer was.
Well, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. It should be feeding into the whole house if it's plugged in all the way through the whole house. It should.
She's only got one jack active.
We have really lost our audience right now. So we apologize. We really
traveling the Vortex.
We don't have a lot to talk about this week anyway. It's going to be a short show, so just bear with us here. Anyway, what link should I put for that? Cox Cable?
And if anyone who works at Cox is listening, and I'm not supposed to be getting those digital tier channels.
No.
Sorry.
I don't.
It's not intentional. I didn't do it on purpose.
They don't know that. I mean, they don't. There's no way for them to block those out. So it just comes with the internet. Yeah,
okay.
It's pretty much allowed.
Well, I was thrilled. But, then I realized I didn't have cable to
you have
run
to actually
I have to go get a physical cable to plug it in.
I'm not sure why yours at your house didn't.
I don't know either.
Anyway.
There was a lot of problems with the house anyway. So. Bringing this back around to news, those who don't have cable probably watch a lot of DVDs.
That's right.
And next year, you will have 6 new Classic Who... Or no, I'm sorry, 5 Classic Who DVDs to watch.
What's coming out?
So far.
So far, we've got a release schedule. January 10th, Invasion of the Dinosaurs and Android Invasion will be coming out.
Android Invasion is one of my all-time favorites ever.
I like Invasion of the Dinosaurs. There we go.
I was excited about that.
Android
one.
Invasion's good too, but
I don't know why I like it. I was trying to explain to Keith why it's probably not a very good one. It's probably one that my memory has just...
yeah, it's one of those I don't remember very well, but I remember
But for
liking
whatever
it.
reason, I can watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it, and I'm okay with it. I love it.
Okay.
And this is all coming from TV shows on DVD.com for those wanting to go.
They're usually pretty accurate.
Yeah, they are very accurate. And all this is according to listings found at Amazon's Canadian branch, as the studios haven't announced these yet. So this might usually when they post something, they are sure it's accurate.
What else is coming out?
The 6-part adventure from the first year of transmission, story number 7, The Sensorites.
Sensorites.
I've never seen that one.
Is coming out.
I've never seen Sensorites either. In fact, I think I have a digital copy that I got years ago that might have come off of a VHS. Maybe it's even a recon. I can't remember. So,
And that's coming out on Valentine's Day.
February 14th.
Along with The Caves of Adrazani
Ooh.
Special Edition.
Special Edition Caves. One of the best Doctor Who's ever. I know it's cliche to say that because it's on everybody's top 5. But it's so good. So good.
And then the final 3 items, so those counting, 5 wasn't accurate. There's 5 new
Well, you
listings.
said 6 and then you said 5.
So there's 7.
You were wrong.
It's 5 new listings. I think we knew about invasions, the 2 invasions.
I knew about Invasion
I
of the
think
Dinosaurs.
we even had the
for
date
sure.
on that.
Yeah.
They aren't actually up for pre-orders at this point.
What are they? Quit. He's like lengthening the suspense, feeding into it.
We got
Story number 37, Tomb of the Cybermen, Special Edition.
Special edition. These are all the special editions that are coming out.
Story number 65.
These have probably all been in revisitation sets already
I'm
released
sure
in
they've
the
already
UK.
been released
Yeah.
over there.
Story number 65, The 3 Doctors Special Edition.
Yay!
And story number 90, Robots of Death Special
Yay!
Edition.
I actually have Robots of Death on DVD, but it's the
And it comes
original
out
release.
March 13th.
I heard a cry. Keith didn't get it.
Nope.
I don't get it.
It's one of the robots.
I haven't seen it, so
No,
I
I
don't
know.
get it.
Yeah.
You can borrow it if you want, but it's the old.
I'm
the
sure we're
original
going to get
release.
to it.
Or do you have it? You
I
own it?
have that
You
one
own
too,
that
I think. Yeah, Robots of Death.
So I think I will be picking up probably Tomb of the Cybermen and the 3 Doctors Special Editions.
Those are 2 good ones to have.
Yeah. I really, especially, I'm on the fence about Tomb of the Cybermen because it was good, but 3 Doctors is going to be a definite buy. It's so good.
Tomb of the Cybermen is as early trouting as you're going to get at this point.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah. Speaking of, what were we watching that somebody said Omega? Do you remember that?
Oh, it was the
the
Oh, yeah.
Doctor
So it would have
Tonight
been
or whatever
UK.
it was.
Yeah.
So it would have been UK. That's how they say it over there. They would have been British actors saying that. So.
I think it was Mark Gatiss when he woke up. When
Omega.
Oh, in the
in the sketches.
startled
Doctor
him like,
Who
oh my god!
Well, that's it for news. That's all I had.
All right.
We got not retweeted, but tweeted from the podcast. I don't know if you'd seen that or not. I thought it was hysterical. I
How'd
just
you
had
tweet from the podcast?
So I was just happening to go through my feed, and somebody had quoted us in a tweet that was last week when he said, what was it that I had said when we were struggling over the prophecy from Wedding of River Song, and somebody had quoted us saying, "Don't Shatner it, just I don't remember now what we said, but whatever it was.
Yeah,
and I was
well,
like,
it's because he was reading it,
Yeah.
and it was like so, like in brief.
so I said, "Don't Shatner it, just and just break it up." And somebody had quoted that in a tweet, and I was floored. I was flabbergasted. That was so cool.
People are listening.
Yay! I don't remember now who that was. I should go back and see if I can find out.
That's funny.
Well,
Well, let's move on to feedback. Yeah,
moving on to feedback.
Feedback.
we've got feedback.
I got to work on that jingle.
Yeah, it's coming along.
Does
I don't know.
GarageBand have an option for that?
Let me see. Create jingle. Oh, here it is.
It auto creates too.
There's a create jingle button.
I wouldn't be surprised. This thing's great. I mean, it's fantastic.
Our first
Good
bit comes
stuff.
from William.
William.
Hey guys, I've been listening for quite a while now, so I think it's about time I write in.
Yay! New writer.
First time right in. Yay.
Sorry,
Welcome,
we didn't,
William.
Welcome. Sorry we didn't say anything sooner. We didn't know who the heck you were. There was this blank stare around the table. William. No.
First off, love your discussions. Kudos and praise, etc. Secondly, a few comments on last week's discussion of the Wedding of River song. Retcon time.
Yeah.
Why was Canton at the death of the Doctor? Simple.
Oh, I liked this explanation, William. I read this.
The Doctor needed to tell his companions where to go with his younger self, and he did that by dropping the hint of Space 1969 and having Canton there. These two hints allowed them to find out where and when they were supposed to go.
And I hadn't thought of that until he explained it. And it was like, that's totally
that was
makes
a great.
sense.
That's not even retconning. That was just
That
makes
was
sense.
that was
Yeah,
explained
that
in the
was right
episode
there, yeah.
almost.
Because they commented on Canton. What were you doing? And I mean, just
Right. No,
yeah,
absolutely.
made total sense.
And then relay that to the younger Doctor, and we see them relay that.
Correct. So that works perfectly.
2. Why didn't Dorian blab last time? Me thinks that he agrees with the silence that the Doctor's death needs to happen. Think about how he acted in this episode. He was constantly trying to convince the Doctor to do the right thing and sacrifice himself. Why would he try to help the Doctor get out of his death without being prodded to do so?
certain amount of logic there.
But I think we sort of, you two, and you're trying to convince me, sort of skimmed that same idea.
Yeah.
You guys were sort of putting forth that same thing. Not so much that he, like them, believes, but that he did withhold the information because it doesn't.
Maybe
And only when it benefits him does
Right.
he. Yeah.
And I think it also, he believes it's a fixed point in time.
Yeah,
And that
this
nothing
is
can change
this
it,
is
so.
along those same lines. I have a real problem with Moffat using that character again because it was almost like it was, I really like this character, so I'll figure out a way to use this character again, and that's what I didn't like. I would have liked to have seen a whole different character used in that way, but
Even just the Viking.
yeah,
I was
exactly.
excited to see Dorian come back, though, in Good Man Goes to War, because he's the
Right,
one who's,
right.
sold.
Yeah,
with firm quotation marks
Vortex,
around it, the manipulator of the river.
Manipulator.
So when he showed back up, I was like, oh, hey, I remember that guy. And that was,
Right,
I thought
right.
it was cool.
Yeah.
It was Bowtie.
And then number 3, why does everyone keep talking about a reboot? Granted, we had an alternate universe for the second finale in a row, but in the end, we went back to the real universe. Nothing in the reality of the show ended up changing, so why is this a reboot?
And he's not referring to us talking about that. He's referring to us referring to people talking about
Yeah,
the reboot,
right.
right? Because
And-
I thought
and-
we explained, or didn't explain, we talked about last week how we didn't understand why everybody wants a reboot or why people feel there's a need for a reboot. I'm
Well,
not sure we talked
it's-
about that last week. It was even longer ago than that, wasn't it?
And my reboot's not the right word. Reset, maybe. Not
Well, reset implies a reboot as well.
It's
I think
taking
what
the
it does is
Doctor
it-
back to a point where not everyone recognizes him.
Oh yes,
Everyone
yeah.
thinks he's
and
dead.
maybe that's where Williams
He's flying under the
misunderstanding what we
radar.
were saying.
That's what we
It's
were
not
saying.
a reboot. I think what it is it's a kind of wiping the slate clean as far as the stories that have come
It's a
before.
tabula rasa,
It's everything still exists.
A what?
A what?
Latin for blank slate.
Okay, it's a tabula rasa. It's
Did you really feel the need to throw that out there and make yourself
Yes.
sound smarter?
Because it was a lost title.
Ah.
And there was an
Always
episode
comes
of
back-
Buffy about it.
Always comes back to Lost, doesn't it? For him every time.
That is his nexus point.
It is.
It really
It's a fixed point.
It is a fixed point in Keith's science fiction knowledge is lost.
No, but what I think is I think it's a just like
Star
after.
Trek would
well,
be mine.
Here's a good example. Just coming off the Key of Time, we go back into the next season. We start with Destiny of the Daleks, and to me, that's kind of okay. We're not going to deal with the events anymore that we did in the Key of Time, and we're going to kind of restart over here with Romana because we're going to. But I mean, it's still the same Romana. It's Romana 2. She's just regenerated, but we've got a whole new different personality, and we're going to go a little different direction with the stories this time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's you kind of don't look back on even Tom Baker's first season, how everything kind of linked together. You had kind of a congruent story there, but then when the next season comes around, even though you've got you've got the Fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane, we no longer have Harry anymore. We just kind of go on a new little, you know what I mean? It's a different feel.
It's
to
just
a
new evolution.
Exactly. There you go. That's a great word for it.
Well, that's something that I don't understand because there's a lot of
that happens every time we have a Doctor too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even that so much. There's a lot of
Even
people
in
out there who are
companions,
clamoring
for that
for, I don't like the direction the show's going. I don't like the blah, 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 blah. You know what, guys? The show changes. That is one of the great things about this show. If you don't like the way it's running right now, wait 5 minutes because it's going to go somewhere different. And we've seen that with the different eras, with being stranded on Earth versus the gothic horror nature, which we're getting ready to kind of go into some of those, to the family almost atmosphere that Peter Davidson had on the ship with the companions.
Yeah,
dysfunctional, but they're
well, even the darkness from Eccleston to Tennant.
Yeah. I mean, it's just there's constantly something new that they're dredging up and throwing at us.
And they have to do that with a series that's been on television for so many years. If you're going to have a successful TV science fiction television series, you've got to change up your formulas and your.
You've got to continually reinvent it.
Yeah. And that happened when Moffat took over as showrunner. I mean, that's.
I think where people are maybe, the idea of the reboot is if we go back to fifth season, the Doctor, quote unquote, rebooted the universe,
right?
And so it's Big Bang 2.0, and so now we're kind of left under the. Okay, so did we really? I mean, is it a completely new universe from that standpoint, or was that just a clever doctorism for what happened?
I think it was a clever doctorism because everything seems to have still happened.
I never took it as a literal reboot.
No. Yes, no,
I
agree.
The things
it was a going back to
that we're now in a parallel
Big
dimension
Bang.
galaxy.
Right.
I never took it as that.
I never took it as that either. That we went back to the Big Bang. And that was the nexus point to fix everything again. I mean, we've gone back in time and fixed points in time so that everything is back to normal.
Right.
That's what this was. We just happened to go back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
And fix.
And so that was a reboot with space.
Yes.
This is now a reboot with time from the standpoint that it's not a reboot.
I don't even think this one's so much rebooted time. Just in the essence that the Doctor had gotten around it before getting to the fixed point in time anyway.
Yeah.
So
he fixed the leak.
Exactly. I don't think anybody, if they were going to reboot Doctor Who, they'd have done it before now.
Oh,
it's not getting dry because we've got 2 or 3 very different Doctor Who since the series started. We've got Eccleston, and even though we had a carryover with Rose, we had a very different feel in that second, third, and fourth season with Tennant, and then we've done that again with Matt Smith. And that's the nice thing about having a new person come in and play the Doctor each time is you can kind of step back and say, okay, how are we going to do this a little differently this time? And I think if they were going to reboot, like officially reboot, like a Star Trek reboot of the series, that they would have done it by now. And Star Trek is even a bad example of a reboot. I suppose
that's
Battlestar
a great example.
would be a reboot.
Battlestar
would be a great reboot because Star Trek still works within its continuity. So
although. I don't know, Battlestar, there was that one episode where they found the hidden lab, and it had a classic Cylon inside of it, which
I
they
think
alluded
that was
to.
more of a nod.
Well, they alluded to the fact that these were what the Cylons looked like before they became the super battle droids.
Right.
So, I don't know. I kept hoping that show was going to go that way, and it didn't.
That would have been kind of
It would have been, you guys, I take back all of the bad things I said about you. No.
History just repeated
not so
itself.
much. Sorry, William, we got off on a tangent there. We do that.
He finishes up saying, "Any who is good who, keep up the good work." Will in Okazaki.
Okazaki.
And then he writes back in, this is why you shouldn't comment before finishing the podcast. P.S. Why do they need River in the suit? The Silents are trying to create a fixed point in time so that the Doctor can't get out of his death. How better to do so than using a Time Lord or the closest thing available?
Yeah, no.
That's a great point, too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okazaki.
Okazaki.
Where's Okazaki, Will? Does anybody know?
Don't know. Okazaki.
I don't know.
Write in and let us know where that's at.
Find out where
I can
Okazaki
Google it
is.
real quick.
Or you could Google it real quick and take all the mystery away and not give
Yeah.
William anything to do for next week, Keith.
Well, William doesn't have anything to write in about next week. He's still going to Google it.
I'm still going to Google it because I don't know.
So who's next, Keith? What's the next feedback?
Up next, we got
Chrissy's back.
Chrissy is back in the great
I got it.
U.S. of A.
Chrissy writes, Dear Vortex Boys. I just love that. Hello, I'm back, and I have a story from my trip that involves you guys.
Ooh.
You can't prove it. We weren't there. First of all, I had a pretty good trip. For those of you who don't know, Chrissy went to Serbia as part of her study abroad program. I studied abroad once. I'm just going to leave it at that. She didn't appreciate it at all. Ba-dum-bum. Thank you for getting it. He's absorbed in his phone. He's not paying any attention to me. Thank you for laughing at that joke.
I got it. That was just a horrible joke.
It was a great joke.
A joke my granddad would have told.
I liked your granddad. I never met your granddad, did I?
No, I don't think so.
I would have liked your granddad.
You would have liked my granddad, yes.
Where was I? First of all, I had a pretty good trip, but getting back home from Serbia was a nightmare. I'm not a great traveler at the best of times. I've decided that I would make a horrible companion for the Doctor. The worst was when I was in the plane in Frankfurt, Germany, ready to leave for an 11-hour flight back to the United States. We were just about ready for takeoff when the captain came on the intercom and announced that we were going to be delayed for 2 hours because it was raining in Frankfurt and a radar tower in Canada had shut down. This is I got to segue here a minute. I read this, Chrissy, and I thought to myself, what does a rain cloud in Germany have to do with a radar tower in Canada for you flying back to the States? It just seems like there's a lot of open ground in between those two locations that the plane should have been okay with. But I don't know. I'm glad they waited and didn't interfere with your safety because that would have made me sad. So, doesn't that sound strange? A radar tower in Canada goes down, we can't take off in Germany?
Yeah, that seems strange.
How big is the radar coverage?
Maybe they're all interconnected, and without that one giving data to the subsequent ones overseas, they could.
Or maybe she was flying up over the.
Oh well, headed to Serbia. Maybe they did cross the pole. Maybe they did go over the. That's the shortest route.
But I thought they were headed back at this point.
Yeah, though they are.
Well,
Hey,
you're still going to go up and over, depending on which way you're going.
They're going up to Serbia, down to Frankfurt.
No. She was in Germany coming back to the States.
So it's Serbia, Frankfurt, and then over.
Over to the.
I don't know. We're presuming. I don't know.
The C may need to write in and clarify this.
We don't own a globe, so we're a little uncertain about that. And at any rate, she was stuck. We couldn't leave the plane because the situation could change at any moment, and they wanted to leave as soon as they could.
Okazaki must be in Japan. Okazaki, Japan.
You're the one Googling it.
I did. I Googled. I got curious. Everything I come up with says Japan. Okay. Will, you got to let me know. Are you
It's
in Japan?
probably down the road. It's
It
probably,
probably
like
is.
Okazaki,
It's like
Kansas.
Okazaki, Oklahoma. You know?
Wow, if he's listening in Japan, that's cool. That's another pin for my board.
I've not been board of.
I know, but I should.
Oh, what?
In my head, I keep
In your head,
pinpricks
you have a
of-
board
you
with
know,
push pins.
little red push pins
of
of
all
where
of our
everybody's at.
listeners.
Yeah.
All right.
Where were we? She was stuck.
Sorry, Chrissy. I didn't mean to interrupt your.
She was into water. The snakes
last-
started to charge her, and then
it's my last interruption. So sorry.
yeah, whatever. We couldn't leave the plane because the situation could change at any moment, and they wanted to leave as soon as they could. So I was stuck in a plane with tons and tons of grouchy people, and I couldn't even get my laptop out because the person in front of me had their seat reclined practically in my lap. The only thing I could really do was listen to my iPod. So I listened to Traveling the Vortex. And quite honestly, listening to your discussion of the Armageddon Factor and the Wedding of River Song was a blast. Yes, I did watch both of those before I listened to the podcast, so I wasn't spoiled on anything. I know you get tons of feedback thanking you for the great job you do, but this week I'm giving you my heartfelt thanks for keeping me sane during my trip, even when all these goofy things kept happening.
Well, it's a good thing we went a little long last week,
I
too.
guess so. We didn't have the energy, though, because Sean and I were both tired. So I'm glad we were still entertaining enough.
That means a lot,
Yeah,
Chrissy,
it really
to hear
does.
that. It touches my heart a little bit. I'm not being goofy when I say that. It makes me feel good. The rest of my trip was great, by the way. I got tons of pictures, including one of Darth Vader and a stormtrooper walking through the streets of Belgrade with a bunch of Monty Python guys. I tell you, Belgrade, they know how to party in Belgrade.
They do.
I'm sure you'd appreciate that. Look for it when I post it. On to feedback, and this will be long because I've got 2 weeks' worth of thoughts to catch up. Speaking of places where big-time sci-fi movies have been made, parts of Independence Day were filmed just north of where my family lives. You know that scene where Will Smith's character drags the alien across the desert back to the military base? Those are the Bonneville Salt Flats in western Utah. I even know a few people who were extras in that movie. I guess that's my one claim to fame. Parts of Pirates of the Caribbean 3 were filmed there as well. I have a response to the "what would you write if you had the chance to write for Doctor Who" question. And I'm sorry I don't remember who originally posed this, and I'm too lazy to look it up right now. That's okay, so are we.
I believe it was Alex.
Is it Alex or Mark?
I believe it was Alex.
You might be right. I would write a story that involved my favorite, and in my opinion, the scariest villain Doctor Who has ever seen, the Mara. I've been secretly hoping Stephen Moffat would write a Mara story because he would do a great job with it. But if he's not planning on it, I would totally do it. I don't know how specifically what the story would be about, but I'd come up with something. I just love the psychological thriller aspect of the Mara, and I wish the new series would use it again. And if Keith can bring back the Merca and make it cool, I can certainly bring back the Mara.
Sure, yeah.
I have to be honest, I've not seen either of the Mara
Really?
episodes.
Snake Dance or
Kinda.
Kinda, yeah.
Kinda.
Kind
I
of.
don't even know how to pronounce it.
Kinda. It's Kinda, trust me.
Don't hate me, Chrissy. I haven't seen either one of them.
Neither have I, but
I'm looking forward to those when we.
Because it's Kinda and then Snake Dance. I think they go with that in order. So one's a prequel, the other too. So sorry, go ahead.
The prequel came second.
I think it's Kinda and then Snake Dance. No, maybe I've got them backwards now.
At any rate. And here are my thoughts on The Wedding of River Song.
The sequel did not come before the prequel. Sorry. Go ahead. One's a sequel to the other.
Stop it. I noticed you didn't have any thoughts about Armageddon Factor. maybe that speaks volumes. Wedding of River Song. I liked it well enough. I still think there are tons of questions that need to be answered. I'm still holding on to the how did the TARDIS explode in Series 5. I also called the Tessellect a doctor. Mostly because they spent so much time on it in the pre-credit recap sequence.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
really did.
yeah.
I sort of wish this would have been a two-part finale because it seemed like there was more that could have been done with the story. Well, I'll close up now and let you get on with the rest of the podcast. From your number one fan, west of the Rockies, and I will gladly shell out money for T-shirts when they become available, Chrissy.
We're still working on the T-shirts.
Yes.
I did a little bit of research today. I went down to Michael's and priced, and they have for $3.99. They have T-shirts.
I got another avenue that's much
Yeah.
simpler than that. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, much simpler.
All right, you tell me off air. Mm-hmm. Maybe a reality soon. Thank you, as always, Chrissy. We appreciate
Yeah,
you right now. We're
absolutely.
glad you're back in the U.S., back on home soil.
Glad you had a safe trip.
Yes, and it was nice seeing you back for Friday night. Ooh.
Yeah. We actually had a very active Friday night. Well,
We had Mavic.
we started
Chen.
with a very active Friday night.
Yeah. Who did we lose? Was it Mavic?
Well, Mavic disappeared
Reese.
midway
we had
through,
Reese for a while, too.
and I'm not sure what happened to him. He just kind of stopped tweeting. Maybe he was really engrossed with the story, but he stopped tweeting about midway through. And then poor Reese continued tech problems on
Oh,
his
that's right.
end
Yeah, he had technical problems.
because he couldn't get the second episode to load,
Right.
or the third, or the fourth.
Right.
So he had to bow out.
That's right. I forgot about that. Well, thanks for the attempt, both of you.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of fun when we've got a lot of
The
people.
more
on
people involved.
on the Twitter feed. That's
And
a lot of fun.
did you happen to see on the Twitter feeds that I'm going to take credit for it because we obviously inspire everybody. You're familiar with the Doctor Who bar?
Uh-huh.
There's a Doctor Who bar USA now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
All right.
That's
When
their
do
hashtag.
they do
is
theirs?
Doctor Who bar USA.
Oh, terrific.
Saturday afternoon, I think.
So the same time Doctor Who Bar UK does theirs?
No.
Because, Doctor Who Bar USA Doctor Who bar does theirs on Saturday afternoon, U.S. time.
Yeah.
Time zones.
It was before Doctor Who bar.
Morning? Are they doing Friday?
I
A little Scooby-Doo in that one. Morning?
I don't know. Let me see if I can find. Now that I've brought it up, I just keep my mouth shut on these things. I don't understand what the heck happened to my Twitter deleted itself. Where did you go?
USA.
Yeah.
All right. As we continue to
I've
look these
Googled
things up, I'm not sure why we do pre-show meetings, but
They do it on Sundays.
we certainly aren't the most organized podcast.
No, we really aren't.
Is it Sundays? Maybe it was this morning that I saw it.
According to drwhobar.blogspot.com, you should write that down.
I've got it. Don't worry.
Ooh, they watched School Reunion today. 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
On Sunday.
The bar opens at 6 p.m. They press play at 6:30.
And that's USA.
Sunday.
Yes.
Okay. He never qualified Sunday.
Yes, Sunday.
Okay.
Sunday.
The post was Sunday, September 4th. I don't know.
So we've got Friday Night Who UK, which for us is Friday afternoons.
Yes.
We've got Friday Night Who at
Okay,
midnight.
apparently they changed because this week it was Saturday.
Oh, see, I'm not crazy then.
No. They apparently alternate what day.
And then there's Doctor Who bar Saturday nights. And at some point in time, there's a Doctor Who bar USA, which alternates. So you have multiple opportunities to catch an episode and tweet along with it. You don't have any excuses now.
Yes.
Right.
If you're not going to join us, join somebody.
That's
Okay,
very cool.
they're doing random days.
All right, so I'm not going to put up a schedule. So what's
Yeah.
the next bit of feedback we've got?
That's it.
Okay, no more feedback.
Feedback.
Do we got
That's
somewhere
it
going to
for
wait until we
feedback.
review the new show, right? Oh wait,
Oh,
new show this week.
No new show. Don't
Aw.
confuse me like that, Glenn. I thought there was something
You
we were waiting
You did
to
have
do.
that glazed over, huh? A look for a second. Just a split second in his eyes. Cool. All right. Well, let's review. Let's review this week's.
I just have this image in my head of Pee Wee's Playhouse. Like I keep waiting for you to say something, and I'm going to launch it. You said the secret word.
Maybe we should start having a Traveling in the Vortex secret word.
It will never be lost. Just telling you.
Will it always be found?
Boy, this is just. We're full of these kind of jokes tonight.
Oh, we're full of something.
Yeah.
Let's go way back to the beginning, shall we?
Way back to the beginning. We
Set the
just
Wayback
finished
Machine.
the end last week
Of the most recent.
of the most recent Doctor Who, and now we went all the way back through the vortex to the beginning.
Story number 1.
I thought it was clever.
No, it is clever. That's why I'm playing it up.
Okay.
You thought I was making fun of you, didn't I?
Well, yeah.
You thought I was making. Oh, this was the corny thing. So let me really emphasize it. No, I thought it was. It was very clever.
Okay.
We all went, yeah,
Yeah.
great idea, Sean.
Well, but you say
we
that about
patted you on the
everything.
back and well.
This has been on the list of
Sometimes
things
you have to
watch
pat the
since we
puppy on the
watched
head when
Daleks.
he's doing good
Yeah.
things too.
I'm going to pretend I was listening to him and didn't hear you.
An Unearthly Child. Susan Foreman is a mystery to teachers Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright, seemingly knowing more than she should about the past and the future. Their curiosity leads them to follow her home one night, only to find that her home appears to be a deserted junkyard. In the junkyard, they discover an odd police box and a strange old man who claims to be Susan's grandfather and calls himself the Doctor. The journey of a lifetime is about to begin. Da-na-na. Wow, there's nothing about the next two the following 3
Well,
episodes.
it's
in
because,
there.
like we said, after we watched it, after you get
There's-
out of
there's-
after they leave the TARDIS, it all just kind of goes.
Even the title, An Unearthly Child, that doesn't have anything to do with the Cave of Skulls or the fire making or the bad knife.
Nope.
Or
The short,
although, I mean,
the short
realistically,
synopsis says
the Unearthly, back in the day, the Unearthly Child was just the
pilot
first.
episode.
Well, was just the name of the first episode, and then everything was because back in the day they didn't group them together in titles. Every episode had its own title up until I don't remember when they stopped doing that. We talked about it one time. It was in the second or third season. I mean, it was within Hartnell's.
It was still Hartnell, but
yeah.
it was late Hartnell.
Right.
The short description says 2 teachers follow a mysterious student home to a police box, and the doctor takes him on a short excursion back
A short excursion?
to
What?
200,000 BC.
A short excursion?
And there were no giant turkeys.
I don't think that excursion ended.
Their short excursion to 2000 BC was short.
Okay.
Comparatively.
I like
Comparatively, yes.
Ian and Barbara
compared
were
to the
around
next
for
set of stories that came out.
all 7 parts of the Daleks.
I still like the Daleks, just not as well anymore.
7 parts!
And boy, pat ourselves on the back. We sat down and watched this entire box set this weekend. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, expect a full review of... no, wait.
No.
Never mind.
I couldn't have made it through 7 episodes of the Daleks again.
Oh, I don't think so either.
Especially not coming on the heels of Fire.
Well, Keith, what'd you think? This was your first...
The very
This
first...
was your first dance with the first episode, so first story.
The first episode of the story was fascinating. I hardly tweeted. I was on the edge of my seat, or not, maybe not the edge of my seat, but leaned forward.
You were intently watching.
I was very
noticed
intently
that.
watching.
There was a lot of intent watching. There was not a lot of tweeting going on
Chrissy,
that first
in fact,
part.
brought it up at one point where she said
until
hadn't been much tweeting lately.
Until we got to the caveman days. But let's talk about the good parts first. It's so fascinating that, okay, yeah, we don't see the origin of the Doctor. Him and Susan are obviously on the run from this point because he talks about having to leave previous places because people have discovered them.
Right.
Which I thought was very interesting. And then just the fact that the Doctor essentially kidnaps Ian and Barbara.
Yeah.
I
remembered it that way before we watched it this week and then realized it's more like Sean said, well, not really, because he doesn't. If it hadn't been for Susan's interference when the Doctor was basically trying to usher them out.
Yeah.
Well, no, not.
Well,
I mean, the Doctor was adamant that they would not be allowed to leave.
Yeah.
Or
No, I guess that's right.
that they'd have to leave Earth.
I guess
one of the two.
it was Susan's cause for where they went.
Yeah.
That's right. You're right. You're absolutely right because he wasn't.
I mean, I agree with you. I don't really look at it as the Doctor kidnapped him, but he was pretty adamant that they were getting off the ship,
Yes.
they were getting off the ship and the ship was leaving. One of the two.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And he was even willing to leave Susan.
Yeah.
Which the Doctor comes off so cold in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then first episode out, TARDIS is malfunctioning. We can't figure out where we are because
this is the first time that the Doctor notices that the committing circuit's not working.
That I was just about to bring that up too, which I thought was really interesting that that was established so early on.
Yeah, well, you get the impression.
I always figured that it was retconned later.
Yeah.
Why it was always a police box.
Oh,
But the fact that they established it so early on, that's so cool.
He almost has a panic in his voice when he realizes
why hasn't it changed?
Why hasn't it changed?
Yeah.
And it totally makes sense based on where they were. They were in the Foreman's junkyard at 76 Totter Lane.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an old police box that was not being used. If you walked in there because you saw the paintings and the mannequins and you would have just believed that somebody had discarded a police box that was no longer in use. And that's why it made it so much sense.
Except that even Ian was kind of surprised that, it's a police box. Like, what is this doing here?
Yeah.
Well, I think more. I took that more of because even in the late '60s they weren't using police boxes much anymore.
Yeah, no. This is 60
early '60s, but early '60s. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, no, well, supposedly it actually takes place in its actual
within
time.
its actual time frame.
That's what I'm saying though is by the early '60s they had essentially quit using. So I think it was more of a, hey, I haven't seen one of these since I was a kid type things, as opposed to, it's a police box, what's it doing here? You know, that's the way I got it. That was the impression
really
I
out of
got.
place spot
Right.
for it.
But,
Yeah.
hey, it's a police box.
Hand me
What do you want?
top shelf, the Doctor Who technical manual. I have a question now, and I need to consult my childhood research guide. It's next to the yearbook, right after the graphic novels.
Right there.
Let me describe my bookshelf to all you listeners at home.
That's a poster.
Yours got a different cover. Oh, that's the cover I have. Okay.
All right, continue.
Yeah.
Because I think you're wrong, but
You think I'm wrong about what?
Yeah.
I remember reading somewhere, and I could have sworn it was in this book, maybe not. The police boxes were in use in the 50s and up through mid to late 60s.
Oh, I don't. Well,
Maybe now they had different variations of them.
yes,
but they were still
absolutely. And in fact, I
police
think
boxes.
there were police phones. They were no longer. This was before they had so many different precincts where you could just take the assailant or the suspect or whoever you'd captured onto the police station. You didn't have to throw them in a box and put them together. You know, or, call it in and all that.
Police boxes played an important role in police work until 1969-1970 when they were phased
There you
out
go.
following the introduction of personal radios.
There you go. So
That's interesting. Where did you find that?
Wikipedia.
Okay, you Wikipedia'd it. I pulled out the Doctor Who technical manual by Mark Harris by Random House from, I don't even remember what year this was.
Ooh, one police box situated in the Leicester town of Newton Linford is still used by local police today.
The history of the police box. Metropolitan Police telephone box was the successor to the old watch box established in the London area in the early 19th century. The first police boxes were introduced from America in 1888. The earliest police box... Seriously? We're responsible?
This is fascinating. Keep going.
That really is. I think that's... We were responsible.
Yes,
Doctor Who's a
that's-
British show. It's a British institution. No. U.S., we can claim police box. I'm planting the flag, baby. Earliest police box to resemble the Doctor's was set up in Newcastle in 1929. Originally of timber, these boxes were later made of reinforced concrete and weighed about 2.5 tons. Police boxes of the TARDIS type were first erected in London in 1930. They cost £43 each, and I don't think that's right. I'm not sure how I'm reading that. By December 1953, there were 685 of them, as well as 73
What
phone
year did you
telephone
say?
posts. 1930.
1953? There were 685?
By December 1953, there were 685 of them, as well as 73 police telephone posts in the Metropolitan Police District. By 1969, technology had overtaken the police box. With the introduction of personal radio communications equipment, the police box began to be phased out.
Well, looky there. Wikipedia's right.
Wikipedia is right. They rarely are, but no. Actually, Wikipedia is not right more
Yeah.
often than not. Yeah.
So at any rate, they were still in effect at the time.
So
this
yeah,
episode
I stand corrected.
supposedly
Then
was.
I misinterpreted then Ian's reaction because that was my impression was more of a hey, there's a police box here. I haven't seen one of these in a while, but they would have been in use still at that
Did
time.
you know that
so.
they used it to lock up criminals if need be?
Yes, it's what I just said. And
I
now
love that.
you've
I
gotten
love
far
that
more
book.
history of the police box than you probably intended to get, but here
It
we
was
go.
before the yearbook or after?
Before the yearbook, please. I have to get my yearbook back from Matt. Remind me to do that.
It's right here.
I have two of them.
Two.
I also have the 92 yearbook. Maybe. At any rate.
So anyway, yeah, the first episode of this story arc is really cool. I mean,
It's really interesting,
yeah,
fascinating, and then it really goes downhill.
it would have been
and
our first look at the TARDIS had we been watching for the first time back then. It was anybody's first look at the interior of the TARDIS and how overwhelming and less simplistic it is than it is, even, well, not now, but in the, the middle of its run, it was more simplistic. And back then, I mean, there were several different parts. They had the console, the room was bigger, it had the clock that, was in the corner that the Doctor even remarks has stopped, isn't working anymore. Has something hanging over the top, I noticed, above the TARDIS console. And then it's got the...
Almost
little-
a weird Star Trek teleport thing.
It
That
does,
looked
yeah,
kinda
that's
like
what it looks like.
It looked like a big grid work.
It's
hanging
also
out there.
got that subsection that's a little further away from the door that has the one computer panel, and then on the other side, which we eventually get to see, is the food replicator thing. But they don't address that in this one.
Right.
They get
Until
to
the
that
Daleks,
eventually.
I think.
Yeah,
That was-
right.
from
They
the
get to that
original.
eventually. But so we see, the grandness of the original console room, which is where we're back to now, and especially in Matt Smith's TARDIS, the console room is quite expansive. So
Here's one. What's your favorite console room?
Matt Smith.
Yes, we know about you. I mean, because we've
I like
got,
the Peter Davison era console room after the Five Doctors because
After
I like
the redesign.
I like the larger console with the more gadgets on it, but I still like the simplicity of the room. That you've just got the with the hat rack was not even there in Davison's era. Correct?
I don't believe so.
It went away.
It was there for a bit, and then it disappeared
right.
for a bit.
I like the simplicity of that room.
In fact,
with
they
the larger
joked at one
console.
point that he was looking for. Wasn't that Frontios?
Might have been.
Wasn't he looking for a hat rack or something at that point?
That makes sense.
Because we've got the Hartnell one, and the Hartnell one actually changes. Well, from Hartnell to Troughton, it's not quite the same. It's fairly standard. Well, no, I guess it's little tiny tweaks, but still fairly standard. Actually, all the way up through Baker.
Well,
I mean,
with the exception of the second console room, when we get the
the backup control.
the
God,
brown,
I hated the backup
brown
control room.
console. It looked like a
Which we saw at the end
looked
of,
like a 1970s
when Sarah
living
Jane
room.
left.
And Hand of
Yes,
Fear.
Hand of Fear.
Hand of
That's
Fear.
the one you
Yeah,
have
brass
seen. That
rails
one.
and
That's
the-
right.
the-
Yeah,
And
it's
then
Which had
tiny.
almost a very Doctor Who the movie feel to it.
Yeah,
But see, I
very
like
vice versa.
Victorian. Very.
if I were going to, and I'm kind of with
I
you.
had forgot about that one. I do like that one as well.
Yeah,
But it's just much bigger.
Yeah.
I enjoy the gizmos and knobs and cool gee whiz factor, and I've always been a fan of any of the 60s, any of the silver console rooms.
yes.
That
Yeah, I
just
like that too.
just to me has always been that's it. But I love the console room of Doctor Who the movie.
Yeah.
That may be my favorite, even though it is very. I hate to say it, reminiscent of the
I-
wooden, stupid.
Well, that's just
backup control.
I have a problem with the. I think it's cool looking and it's quite different. I really like the alien technology
The
look.
hodgepodge look. to
Well,
it.
yeah,
That's what I like about
the
Matt
problem.
Smith is
The problem I
hodgepodge.
have with Matt Smith is it's too steampunk. I don't like the typewriters. I don't like the. I mean, it's going for a look that I think is already used. It's already been there. I like the plain TARDIS console with the very futuristic looking knobs and dials and whatnot on it because that looks very high tech, science fiction-y to me, and I think that's what I like. That's what I even didn't like so much about the Doctor Who the movie console is we've got the numbers that roll on the dial like the old alarm clocks I had when I was a kid. That was a digital alarm clock
and
when
the
I was
brass
a kid.
plates.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that kind of stuff, yeah.
It's too steampunk and I don't know.
If you could.
I sort of liked and really enjoyed Eccleston and Tennant's TARDIS console room because not so much the console itself, but I really liked the organic feel of
the coral.
coral. Yeah, I thought that was really neat.
So now, I guess that's my next question. Can you differentiate between the control, the TARDIS console,
And the
control
room.
rotor, and the console room? If you could mix match, because
See,
I'm with you. I love Matt Smith's control room. I'm not a big fan of the console. I mean, I don't hate it, but that one weird bottle of fluid that's kind of up on the, I don't know what it is, but it bugs me every time they show it in a shot. It just looks like something that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
If I could mix and match, I could probably come up with a pretty cool.
And I think maybe
one,
that's it
but-
because I agree with you. I like the console from the Davison Tom Baker era, but I really like the console room from.
But see,
Doctor
the other
Who
thing,
movie.
that's just it. The other thing I like, I like the expansiveness of the one in Doctor Who, the movie. That's my favorite console now, if I'm going to think about it hard enough, is the first Doctor's console room. I like that. It's just high-techy enough for me, but it's still large, and there are other things that serve purposes. It's not just the console in there. There are other things in there. There's panels of computers. There's, albeit very 60s-looking computers, but there's more to it. And even I like the out-of-placeness of that antique-looking clock that we get to see, as well. So
Well, and he had furniture in there too,
He
which
did have some
was
furniture,
something that
yeah.
was
A chair, yeah.
It was so out of place. It seemed like when they brought it back,
Here's
when we
what
had
I would
benches
like to
and things
see.
with Eccleston, that was like, "What are you doing?" But then I had forgotten that it's like, "Oh, we've got a chair, we've got a table,
Yeah.
we've got a."
I like
know.
David. I love Davison's console. I do like the Victorian chair, an ottoman from the movie that he sits in and is reading the time machine. If you could have that, and maybe even Tom Baker's hat rack near the door, and then the rest of William Hartnell's, with the other science fiction-y, technical, high-tech things in there as well. If I could take those three and put them together, I think that would be a very, very cool room. Maybe even a little bit of Matt Smith splashed in there because it's multi-level.
I love the multi-levels.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's so cool. I don't know about the glass floor.
I like
Yeah.
the glass floor.
I don't know about the glass floor either, but
No, we're big guys. We'd be concerned about the glass floor.
might go through.
Oh, that's what we need. We need a fat doctor.
That's true.
Somebody like Nero Wolfe. Run. Go on. I'll catch up later.
Back to the Unearthly Child. You were afraid we wouldn't have anything to talk about this
Yeah.
week, Keith. Back to the Unearthly Child.
Do you want to chime in on that at all, Keith, or are you going Matt Smith all the way across the board?
I like a lot of tenants too, so it's. I guess I just need to see more of the variety. I know I've seen probably all the console rooms, but
I think at this point you have.
I just need to see more than just the one episode of whatever I've seen
Yeah.
to make a good choice.
I'd still like to know if the time rotor moves, if that whole console is a movable piece or if it's bolted to the floor.
You mean the prop, not the...
Yeah, no, not for real.
Not for real.
Although I imagine
Not in universe.
I imagine in universe it probably could be.
Yeah. Well,
Removed.
if you could just reset the desktop theme, then essentially the console could be anywhere you wanted it to in the room.
It seems to me
Move it around.
Yeah,
I'm going to put it against the wall.
Yeah.
It's like, why? You can't get to the other side. I don't use those controls anyway.
Well, you wouldn't know it.
Oh, okay. So
Especially lately, because, I mean...
he uses every control.
Yeah, Matt Smith runs all the way around that thing.
That is definitely a benefit to the smaller console.
Yes, yeah, you don't have to run so far. Yeah, absolutely. What else did you like about Unearthly Child? Or what else did you not like about Unearthly
I found
Child?
it interesting that it was Ian that was the one that was so skeptical and didn't believe any of this was actually happening. This was all some sort of illusion.
Yeah.
I like that aspect.
Yeah,
I wonder
but
if part of that
he's-
is because he's the science
He's
teacher.
the science teacher, yeah.
Yeah,
so-
and it makes sense, but I don't know. I guess after seeing Ian in later episodes,
Man of action.
the man of action, I just kind of thought he would be the one to be like, okay, that makes sense. It's a time machine. Blah,
I
blah,
sort
blah.
of explained this away. This doesn't have anything to do with the fact that he's the skeptical one, but we talked about him being the man of action in everything we've seen. With the exception of the Unearthly Child, he seems to be more pacifistic. Yeah. Passive.
He's the pacifist.
Yeah, he's the pacifist. And he's not the man of action that we see later in like the Aztecs or even the Daleks. Or even Edge of Destruction, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. But I kind of play that off to the fact that as we go along, I think he felt more responsible for Barbara, and
I
even
think
to
so, too.
even to a degree Susan, because he doesn't quite trust the Doctor, at least in the first several adventures, and so I think that he is forced to take kind of a lead role. He's forced to kind of step forward and be that man of action because he realizes that the Doctor,
The defender.
albeit the youngest Doctor we know, is this old man who's not going to be, that take action, take charge type of person. And so I think that Ian, through the course of the run, realizes he has to step up and be that person that kind of, steps in and is the brawn, and, less of the brain and more of the brawn, the man of action, as we're calling him. And so I think that's why I kind of excuse him not being that type in the first, because this is a guy that was just yanked out of his world as probably this science teacher that goes home every night, reads a book, goes to bed. There's been no action venture in his life since he was probably a young boy.
Then he has to step up and fill
now
that
he has
role
to
later
step up.
on.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's how I kind of explain the difference there.
Which
And
he was
had we
almost-
seen this from the beginning and not started, later in the Doctor's progression or later in anybody's progression and went from the beginning, I think we'd have seen that progression as well. And so I try to put myself in that mindset.
Which and then almost the fact that he wasn't dragged along, but he kind of went just to make sure Barbara was okay, like to go check out Susan's home. And,
Yeah, because Barbara's the one that seems the most concerned.
yeah,
at that point,
she's the concerned one and wants to investigate this, and the one with the curiosity. And she even says something along the lines of, "Oh, my curiosity has gotten the better of me," or something.
Yes.
Is there anybody else who I think it's odd and a little bit, maybe just a product of the '60s? We've got these two school teachers who are so concerned they're willing to stalk a student home and perform what is essentially a home invasion.
Well,
to
you
to
say
make sure that
you
she's
say
okay.
that in jest, but actually,
I do say that in
I
jest,
think I don't think that odd at all. In fact,
Well, considering
I
the
think
fact
that,
that she went by
I think
her
that is-
listed address before and it wasn't a home.
Yeah.
So
I think based in the 1960s and 70s that the teachers were very involved in the students, and they were very concerned about the well-being of the students. And I think that teachers, in a way, acted as social workers as well. That it wasn't just, nowadays I think teachers get involved in the wrong way now.
Well-
But I think that teachers are so afraid to get involved with a child's home life that they almost turn a blind eye
Yeah.
to things that might be happening at home, and they actually have to go to special courses now in order for them to be able to see, make sure you're keeping tab and looking at these signs for problems at home. But
how
in the
many of them have to
1960s and
send that over
70s,
to social workers later?
right, exactly. In 1960s and 70s, I think the teachers acted as social workers, and they were playing a more active role in the lives of those students, because not only are they guiding their minds, but they're guiding their social welfare as well. And so, when me seeing them follow her home based on her well-being, worried about her situation, and curious about her, I don't see it as stalking. I see it as a well-vested teacher, or a teacher being well-vested in the lives of their students and making sure that they're safe and that everything is going well and looking out for their best interests. And so,
I agree.
By them following her home, I had no issue with that at all.
I think we should, realistically, we should be so lucky
Yes.
as to
Oh,
have
yeah,
teachers
absolutely.
Especially nowadays.
that did that. I mean,
I think the problem we have now is I think we have teachers that want to do that, but they only look from the classroom, and so they might make assumptions ahead of time, and so I think things get turned over somewhere based on something that isn't necessarily happening at home, but a teacher sees it one way, thinks it is, and then the government gets involved too soon. We don't take it. If a teacher had followed a child home or had kept a little more watchful eye, maybe they would discover that something at home isn't happening like it is. I think that happens more often now, is that kids are probably better safe than sorry, but kids are probably being monitored more so now in a negative way than they were in a positive way back then. I don't know what I'm maybe I don't think I'm coming across the way that I think I am, but
and also in this episode there's a lot of Doctor Who jokes. Quite a few. Ian calls the doctor Dr. Foreman.
yes, and he says,
and even the
Yeah.
doctor
Who?
replies,
Doctor Who?
Doctor
Yeah.
Who.
Yeah.
You have to understand that this is the first episode of Doctor Who, and we've just named it that. And that's where you go with it at first, is you make those jokes, because we're keeping the mystery of the Doctor intact, but we're playing a little bit with the title as well. And so I expect them to go that way with the first episode.
Because even his credit is Doctor Who,
Dot
DR.
Who.
DR period Who.
Which was a little weird.
I think we decided until Pertwee's era, it was still
Yeah.
Doctor Who, although they spelled out Doctor, I think, for a lot of his era.
Might be, yeah. It changed somewhere Pertwee Baker.
I think so, yeah.
And then the conversation that Susan has with Ian and Barbara about where she comes from, about the fact that she was born in the future on a different world.
Yes.
I thought was very interesting. They didn't name drop Gallifrey, of course.
No,
but
which they hadn't established.
which you assume, knowing the doctors from Gallifrey.
If she says a different time, a different world, she doesn't necessarily say the future, does she?
I
know in the pilot, she
yeah,
does.
in the pilot,
actual
she says
first
future.
shot.
Maybe that's what
pilot,
I'm
she says she
remembering.
was born in the 47th century.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
So,
But a different
But
time,
I think in the
different place.
reshot pilot, the
In
one that counts as continuity,
She says a different time, a different place.
But knowing that she knows things about the future
different world, yes.
that hasn't happened yet, it's safe to assume she's from the future at some
Well,
point.
that's not even safe to assume because we don't know
she's
how
been
much
to
that
the
her and the doctor have been traveling.
Yeah, that's
She's
true.
possibly been to the future, or at least she's traveling with a man that knows has been to the future and maybe has recounted that
Yeah.
those things to her as well. So even if she didn't experience it firsthand, she may have been informed by her grandfather.
And just the school aspect of it is interesting. Okay, here's a person who is traveling or with a time traveler and knows all these things that she shouldn't, and she's having trouble in school. I thought that was a great...
She's almost too smart for her own good.
Yeah. A great, very interesting investigation into what kind of situation that character would be in at that time. Going to school, with all this knowledge and not keeping it a secret.
Something that I find fascinating about this episode is, at least from Baker on, you always get the impression that Earth is one of his favorite places. When he even makes reference to it being one of his favorite places.
And in this one, he doesn't like it.
In this one, he's very turned off by Earth. And I wonder now, and this is just retconning the Doctor's story in my own head, I wonder now, is it because Susan liked Earth so much, and he ends up basically marooning her on Earth later? Was it maybe for a time he was hoping maybe to... He revisited Earth so much
In
that he
hopes to
in
run
hopes
into
that he
her.
might run into Susan again and find out where she was. Maybe not intentionally, but in the back of knowing
subconsciously.
knowing that he couldn't really revisit Susan after he left her there, but maybe subconsciously wanting, and maybe that subconscious yearning to return to Earth enough times to run into Susan, to reconnect, enough times that suddenly he began to have this love for Earth that started subconscious and then manifested in his own conscious that he did. I don't know. It's just something that kind of came across my mind the other night as we were watching this. I thought, wow, he is really turned off by this. He was already mad that he already said, well, we stayed too long and knew this would happen when Ian and Barbara stumble across them.
Yeah.
He says, we stayed here too long. And Susan, so much that she wasn't going to go with her grandfather. She loved Earth and this time so much that she wasn't going to go with him. And so Susan had a much love, at least for this time, on Earth, in Earth's history. And so, yeah, that just kind of came across my head. And I kind of speculated on that a little bit myself. But
It could be.
Wow, so I guess I didn't realize that Dalek Invasion Earth was only 10 episodes, 10 stories later.
Next season, yeah.
And keep in mind that's,
10 stories.
10
not
stories.
10
episodes.
stories
Yeah.
later. Yeah, but that still seems like a rather short time.
Well, I think
Daleks was 7 episodes.
they realized the success
Well-
of the Daleks, and they jumped on that again real quick. They wanted to make sure they got the
December
Doctor's most famous adversary at that time back into the
1964. I
Yeah,
mean,
back into
essentially,
the,
it's, I don't know when this originally aired.
November '63.
November
November.
63. So a little over a year.
Almost. Only like the first part of Dalek Invasion of Earth aired 2 days before the 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, so there you go. So the whole next year, yeah.
There's a lot of things going on in this that it's an incredibly well-written episode. Because we get introduced...
Episode or story? You're talking about just the
Episode.
first
I'm talking about
yes.
just the first... I will go into great length if you want about the cavemen not being well-written.
We're going to have to address that eventually.
I know, we're getting there. But you've got 30 minutes. You've got 4 principal characters. You've got the Doctor, Susan, Ian, and Barbara. All 4 of these come across as well-established, well-rounded, interesting people. With the exception of the Doctor, but I mean, he's supposed to be a mystery, and that's what drives him. That's what makes him interesting.
Yes.
You are through Ian and Barbara. You're given a very good deal of background on Susan and what kind of person she is, and
even flashbacks.
What kind of student she
they
is,
do
and a couple
well,
of flashbacks.
They do a nice job of that.
So that we joke a little bit about Susan being rather shrill. I've always enjoyed Susan. I've always thought she was actually a good, fun character and a good
I like
companion.
Susan. She overreacts and freaks out. over
Yeah, well,
nothing.
even her hysterics. She's 16 or 14 or whatever age she is.
16, I believe.
She's 16.
Susan serves well as a liaison between the teachers and the Doctor.
Yes.
because she understands both sides of where they're each coming from. She understands where Ian and Barbara are coming from their 20th century, mid 20th century mindset and what they believe in and how socially they're supposed to act and how things are accepted in their world. She also understands, having lived or traveled with her grandfather, how the Doctor is going to react to things, and she acts as the perfect liaison between the two parties.
And it's interesting too that she not only has she got a foot in both worlds, so to speak, but she's coming at it from a subservient position. Because in the one world she is
in both worlds,
she's beholden to the teacher. She's got to do what she does there, but she's also beholden to grandfather. And and what do I do here? And so she's got to kind of mediate between the two of them and keep the peace. But yet they're
also
all
still,
adults.
Yes. Also not.
Her.
Also, yeah. Well, and not overstep that boundary of her not subservience, but yeah.
Well, not but
yes.
Yeah,
no,
you understand where I'm coming from.
The mature and child.
Right.
Roles, yes, yeah.
According to
although there's sometimes that Susan, I think, especially in these episodes, and I think even of Edge of Destruction, where Susan comes across more mature than even the other parties.
Oh, yeah.
At times.
At times.
Yeah.
According to the censor rights, her age was given as 15.
15. Okay, she may have been 14 then at the time that she left with the Unearthly Child. Yeah.
Gallifrey must be very progressive because we don't know how much she aged during that season to get to Dalek Invasion of Earth before she took an interest in a boy.
Yeah, shouldn't she have been 14 for a long time if she was a time lady anyway?
Conceivably. What is a year? We don't know how old the Doctor is.
That's true.
Yeah.
We celebrate a year based on 365 days on our trip around the sun.
Equivalent of a month for us.
You mentioned the junkyard, or I guess
Totter's Lane.
Totter's Lane. I guess I never realized until you mentioned it that Susan's last name isn't actually Foreman.
No.
Yeah.
That's what's on the wall.
I'll be honest, I caught that as many times as I've seen. I've seen this one not quite as much as I've seen the Five Doctors, but this is certainly an episode that I've seen multiple times. This was the first time I'd realized that it's Foreman's junkyard and that Susan Foreman, I just kind of took that for granted that was her last name, even though it obviously isn't.
I don't think it was until the second time I'd seen it that I'd caught it, but I had wondered why they kept calling her Susan Foreman when the Doctor doesn't really have a name, and so I assume she just used that when she was signing up for school, and it wasn't until the second viewing that I saw the Foremans on the.
It's interesting that it wasn't
sign.
Smith.
Yeah.
Which they drop a John Smith in this reference in this episode as well.
The band leader.
Yeah, which I thought was incredible because even though it's not the Doctor using that pseudonym, it's that basic John Smith, two of the most famous or most popular names for a first and for a last name, and then that being dropped, even albeit not being in relation to the Doctor, still being dropped in Doctor Who from day one. I thought that was very, very neat.
There's a lot of setup in this. We get obviously we talked about first Totters. First council room shots, first bigger on the inside kind of reaction.
Although he doesn't say that.
He doesn't say it, but
I was a little disappointed it wasn't in the very first episode.
I walked all the way around it. How can this be?
It's still there in context, though.
It's the context.
So many right from the get-go.
This sets up so many.
Yeah. I mean, they've been redoing this for so long now. Is basically what it is. They took everything that was in this episode and just kept going with it. But I think that attributes to how well Part 1 was set up. Part 2, 3, and 4, however.
Part 2, 3, and 4 was a
political drama.
It was. Now, the use of going back so far, what'd you say? It was 2 million or 200,000?
200,000 BC.
By going back 200,000, well, more than 200,000 years then, because it would have been the 1960s. So
going back 200,000...
201,000... 962 years. By going back that far...
Oh, you were actually doing the math.
Can't believe we did the math. But
I can't believe you were doing the math on that.
But going back that many years was their illustration of this is a vehicle that travels in time and has very very few limits in that aspect, is what they're saying in episode 1. That's why we go back so far.
Right.
And
But they could
like-
have also gone back.
it's quite
Oh, look, we figured out caveman time. Let's go forward
quite
now.
frankly, with most time travel movies prior to Back to the Future, something like that, where we're jumping in short time, a lot of time travel movies dealt with going back into prehistoric times. Even the Time Machine, although he goes forward at some point. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they go back and then they go
Right,
forward,
exactly.
and look where we go
So-
next story.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is so what they
Forward
do is
and another one.
that is what you do. You go back in time to show that this thing travels through time, and not just back to yesterday. It goes back to not just yesterday.
Yeah, you have to establish a big jump,
Exactly.
either
Oh,
forward
yeah.
or back.
So that
You've gotta go
so
a
this
long
does that
distance.
well, and I do like the idea of we've come from present day where everybody is acquainted with, even the Doctor to a point, all the way back to a very primitive time, and that's such an iconic shot. I think when they come out of the vortex sounds and the travel and the I can't do it as well as Matt Smith did it. That's the one, yeah. And it materializes there on that open plain, and you see the silhouette of the caveman come up. I absolutely love that. That's so cool, and it sets up so much potential for the next episode, and then falls on its face.
Yeah.
I have to.
It's a power grab for fire.
I have
That's
to.
all that has to say about
I have to go back to the simplicity of the storytelling in the 1960s, though, and I try to put myself in that perspective. If I'd have been watching something like this for the first time, which is really groundbreaking, would have I accepted that story better had this been the first Doctor Who I was ever introduced to, as opposed to the really great stories I've seen since?
Yeah.
And then you go back, and this is put in front of you. I think I could appreciate it more.
Or
that
if you
way,
were
if I had
more in
looked
the
at it that
target
way.
audience,
Yeah.
so to speak, if you were a
Absolutely.
kid watching this for the first time with
Absolutely.
the
Oh, if I was a
cavemen,
kid, I would have loved this.
Although, if
I
I
wish
was a
there would've
kid, I'd have been
been-
devastated because that would have scared the bejesus out of me. Because there are moments in this that are just scary and brutal and violent, especially the caveman rock smashing the guy's
Oh,
head.
yeah.
Although you don't see it, I mean the implications are there. That would have just
Well,
disturbed me as a child.
Look at what we've got going on here. We've got old woman who is beaten up basically, and then killed.
Crazy old woman.
Crazy old woman.
Who, old people weren't crazy when I was a kid.
Well, and they certainly weren't scary looking
no,
like she was.
No.
Did you? Was it just me, or were you guys transfixed by every one of the cavemen's teeth? Did you know? Did anybody else notice this?
Yeah, I
but me?
noticed. I just thought it was really good makeup.
I didn't know if it was good makeup or if there was really their
British hygiene.
Hey,
because,
now.
because the doctor's teeth in
Oh, I'm sure
Hartnell's doctor's
Brits
teeth
will be the first to admit that they're
aren't very good.
teeth aren't that
Susan and Ian and Barbara's teeth, fine, but the doctors and
If you look
all the cavemen's.
if you look real close, a lot of the cavemen look like they had darked out, like they'd actually put stuff between their teeth.
Well,
to
then
make them
good
right.
on them that they
However,
actually
they're-
thought about
they're-
teeth.
It's
do
no
good things.
secret.
BBC doing a
it's
period
no
drama.
It's no secret, though, that the UK has, until recently, I mean, and I'm talking in the last 20 years, has not been at the forefront of dental hygiene. And it's not to their fault. It's because based on the region they are, and I think it must be salt deposits or something in the water or something that is that their teeth weren't in the best
Yeah,
of care of shape, and so they'll be the first to tell you that
they
the,
didn't
the,
add
the teeth
fluoride
are,
to their water
exactly.
like we do here.
It's not it wasn't
You
a
know
thing. It wasn't a thing.
I
until
did know
recently.
that. And you did know that was a government plot to keep us cheap, right?
Right, exactly, and because
Yeah.
fluoride also decays your brain. But
Well,
anyway,
It's,
so,
it's to get us all buying.
so
it's,
if you
it's getting
watch,
us all buying
if
iPods.
you watch, I'm just saying, if you watch, and forgive me, I'm not trying to offend any of the Brits that listen, but if you watch a lot of old British television, and even old British movies, they don't have the best of teeth.
oh yeah.
Mark and Alex will be the first to admit that their grandparents probably didn't have very good teeth. Anyway,
This just more pronounced than anything I've ever seen on Doctor Who. and
that's what I was
probably
about to say. Is though, based on, despite what I just said, I looked at their teeth and could tell that there was they had marked black between them to make them look even more caveman, decayed look, rugged teeth. So,
all right. So, old woman is crazy and scary.
Yes.
And gets hit. She gets beat up and then
I
gets
can't
hit with a
believe we're on a
rock.
tangent on British teeth.
Yeah.
So,
We've got the guy attacked by the panther
I've just
or
lost our
whatever it
whole
was.
British audience because
Yeah,
I just
he had to insult everybody there, didn't you,
insulted
Glenn?
their teeth.
That's Glenn at travelingthevortex.com. Whatever the thing was in the jungle that attacked him, the panther or whatever, we never see.
We never got to see the
It was a
polar bear.
It was a bear. That's not a polar
It was
bear.
not
Lost.
a polar bear.
It was a black bear.
We
You
get
don't even know that. It could have been a
was a
saber-toothed tiger.
It was a black bear.
the
It was a bear. They definitely say bear.
Oh, could
They
have been
definitely say the
prehistoric
bear.
Yeah.
Somebody at some point says the bear.
The bears are talking about. The guy says, oh, we're cold. There's no fire. All right, tomorrow I'll go kill 100 bears. And I mean, talk about boasting. This guy hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
You mentioned campaign promise. Tomorrow I shall go kill a bear.
This other person lies to you.
I will give you a bear
Well,
in
that's
every
all this.
pod.
That's you said it before, but that's all this episode. That's all this story was from that point on was caveman politics. And
Which I never
interestingly
thought of
enough,
caveman
they haven't
politics.
changed over 200,000 years.
A bear in every pod.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
So which
it's-
one was a Democrat? Which was a Republican? Granted, those parties have changed over the years.
We should be
anyway.
asking Labor and Labor and Tory Party.
There you go.
Yeah,
I guess the Labor Party are called Tories. What's the other party? Labor and. You'll have to help us out.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Showing my limitations of British politics because I
Yeah,
don't know.
I don't know that much about British politics. I do know they refer to one party as the Tories, but I couldn't tell you why either. So. Anyway,
I know
go
there's a
ahead.
Labor Party, but I don't know if it's
Yeah.
the same. So
Well, the Labor Party's in power now.
I follow all these people on
That's
Twitter that
what,
complain about it, and I don't.
That's what Tony Blair was not. He was the other party at the point. Anyway.
Anyway, there's a lot of violence in this, not just with the knife and the rocks and the bear and whatever else is going on, but there's a lot of implied violence. There's a lot of threats of being cast out or killed, or I mean, for Pete's sake, one of the episodes is called "The Cave of Skulls,"
Yeah.
and there's a whole bunch of dead people in it.
What they do a good job of is portraying the primitiveness of this clan.
Oh yeah, they definitely do.
I mean, they are very primitive. And even Ian and Barbara, who are trying to interject, and Susan to a point, are trying to interject this compassion and try to make them understand that they're friends, that they want to help, they never convince them of that throughout this entire thing. The cavemen remain in their very primitive, very violent roots. And I like that aspect of it, that they don't learn this life lesson and we don't change things and they become warm and fuzzy and become farmers.
Well, and it really sets
I
up.
don't think that happened.
In particular, it really sets up Susan's character for being the history teacher and trying to
Barbara.
or Barbara.
You're doing what I do.
Yeah. It really sets up Barbara being the history teacher. And, I mean, how many episodes have we watched now where Barbara's tried to influence something in the past to change it, to make it better?
Yeah.
It's just kind of a
And it never
recurring
happens,
theme with
yeah.
her that,
She knows the doctor isn't jumping in there to intercede yet.
not yet.
Yeah.
No.
Well, he was too busy. He was
ready to give the fire away.
He was
I'll
very
make
much-
fire for you. Just let me go.
Yeah. You
cowardly
want fire?
doctor.
I shall get you fire.
The cowardly doctor here.
I loved Ian's reaction when he makes the
It
fire.
reminds me of Solek. When he's trying to
Yeah.
cover for Indy, and you want water? I'll give you
I'll
water.
bring you water. That's very
Whatever
much
you
what the
want.
doctor's
Want more
doing
water?
here.
That's exactly what it reminds
Actually,
me
where I was going with it.
of. Sorry.
But Sala, not Solak.
Solek. Yeah, no, Solek was.
I knew what you were saying.
I went Star Trek there.
I love Ian's reaction when he realizes the mistake, that he's given them fire now, and the guy's like, "Okay, cool. Now you can stay here and you can give it to me again later if I need it."
Right.
It's just like, great. What do I,
Which,
not a moment's peace.
I didn't think about this while watching it. Why didn't even the Za, I think was the character's name.
I think you're right.
Simple names to remember.
They were.
And very science fiction-y, too. Let's throw a Z in there.
Yeah.
Za, Her, Kal, Horde. That's just the ones listed on Wikipedia. Why didn't they question why aren't they covered in fur?
Well, they had said all along they were from a different tribe. They were from the mountains.
Well, they didn't establish
Well,
that.
the one guy
until-
said he saw him come out of the tree.
Yeah, they called them creatures for so long.
They did at the beginning.
Yeah,
because
why didn't they question the clothing then?
Strange skins.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't even say anything
I
about
don't know,
strange
I didn't
skins.
have that much problem.
They,
with
they,
that.
they were too
They were
busy
pretty-
I just
arguing
thought of
over
that
fire.
now.
They were pretty simple-minded. They were worried about fire. They weren't worried about what the strangers were wearing.
I'm sorry, if I got bearskin on my back, fire would be a concern, but I would be more concerned about where my next meal is going to be in that time
Well,
period.
you made the point that the cavemen were advanced enough to do something. What was it?
Oh, I'm trying to remember now.
But not advanced enough to know how to make fire. What was it?
Well, they were at one point. They just had forgotten.
Somehow they
because-
lost fire.
Because the old
It rained, and we
the
were
old-
like, crap.
The old woman's husband or the
The former
second guy's-
leader, father,
dad. Yeah, you
dad.
couldn't tell.
Caveman dad.
In fact, the way they talked about it, I almost thought that was his mom because
Yeah.
the relationship
Yeah,
seemed
they
weird.
had
And then he
very
was
much-
like shoving her on the ground. Of course, he was shoving the girlfriend on the ground too.
Then he
Her
killed
on the
her.
ground.
Then he killed her, didn't he?
Yeah, he ended up killing. her.
Call ended up killing the old mother.
No, that was the other guy that killed the.
I didn't think Za killed old
Zah
mother.
killed the old woman.
Did he?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't keep
don't
track.
remember. Yeah, I don't know.
All those cavemen look alike.
I don't know. Yeah. You're a cavist. Anyway, I don't. Is there much more we can say on this?
You know, I tweeted this out. I'm kind of surprised actually that Keith didn't say anything about it. That, you know, if K9 had been with him at this time, he would have come in. He'd have made fire. He'd have shot all the cave people. He'd have rescued them from their bonds. And I mean, this episode would have been K9 would have made this like a 4-minute episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
Well, it might have taken him a while to get over all the rocks, so it could have filled a half hour.
maybe
15 minutes in, they would have gotten rescued, and then the next 15 minutes would be traveling back to
the,
the TARDIS.
the other thing that I think this episode really, or the story really sets up for Doctor Who is the concept of we escaped, we got away. There's a chase scene.
That's all of Hartnell.
And then we get captured
well,
again.
that's all of Hartnell's era. The majority of Hartnell's era, for at least the first 2 or 3 seasons, is not to come in and fix a solution. It's not to come in and the first season for sure is not to come in and help the natives. It's not to come in and help whoever's the situation or the problem. They always pop into an established culture and spend the entire time trying to figure out how to get away. That's what the majority of the Doctor, Barbara, Ian, and Susan are for at least the first season and a half. Is we're not here to fix things for you. We're not here to solve a problem for you. We're here on accident, and we're trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of those started out as. And
Yeah, well, because they don't resolve anything at this
No.
one. I mean, after the cavemen get the fire, they
don't
run back to
resolve-
the TARDIS,
They
and
don't
that's
resolve
it.
too much
So-
after Daleks, other
yeah.
than the fact that the Thals were able to take over the city. But that wouldn't have happened had it not been for Ian's suggestion, because the Doctor was ready to get the heck out of
Yeah.
there. So.
Well, and then the very end of, well, let's figure out where we're going to go next.
Yeah.
And not knowing where they're going to go
Right.
sets the tone for the rest of the,
Right.
at least
Now-
Ian and Barbara's run, I'm assuming.
Clearly, we're gonna gloss over the 7 stories
Yeah.
that are there. 7
we
episodes that are on
we
the
are
Daleks.
reviewing Doctor Who:
Yeah.
The Beginning, the DVD
but we
box
have
set.
reviewed.
But
the
we have already
Daleks,
reviewed
so-
individually the Daleks as part
Right.
of our
Refer
first
back to that episode of Traveling the Vortex. You can find that
Show
at
notes.
travelingthevortex.com.
Dalek Archive 1.
Point 1.
1.0. I don't know what we're
1.0.
We're going to have to come up with some sort
That would
of...
have been way back when we watched Eccleston's season
Yeah. It was
and
way
got into Dalek.
back.
That was
Well, the next story
Can
in
you
this
believe how foolish
series.
we were trying to watch all those? Because we watched Dalek. What we watched? We watched Dalek, the Daleks, the Dalek Invasion Earth, and Dalek for that show.
Yeah,
yeah,
Wow.
that was quite ambitious of us.
it was very ambitious.
But we're going to go ahead and skip ahead to
The edge of destruction.
Da-na-na.
Something has caused
sorry.
the TARDIS console to explode in mid-flight, plunging the ship into darkness and rendering the crew unconscious. As they slowly recover, they find themselves suffering from a loss of memory and odd headaches. The TARDIS behaves oddly as the doors open and close of their own accord. Has the ship been possessed in some way? Or is something more dangerous happening to the time travelers?
Damn.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yes
This,
and no.
This sets up so much sci-fi. How many Star Trek episodes can you think of where they're stranded on a ship and something went wrong? They don't remember what happened.
All of them.
Yeah. See?
There is a good number of science fiction that borrows from the concept of this
Yeah.
story. I don't know that this is the first time
may
that
not
this
be
was
the
ever
origin,
done, but you
but-
certainly can relate this situation to a lot of
And
science
it's-
fiction on television.
It's the third, in 1964, the third episode, the third story they do for Doctor Who, and they're stuck in the TARDIS the entire time.
Yeah.
That's so
Well,
innovative.
the beauty of it is for only an hour because it's only
yeah.
two.
Yeah, it's only a
episodes.
two-parter, which
Yeah.
is nice. It's not that I didn't like the story because
The resolution was a little
actually
lackluster.
no, that's the difference. That's the
Oh.
part that I did like.
Yeah, no, there's no lackluster to it. The mind blowing perfectness of the finale is incredible. That's what blew my mind watching this. Was we spend, nearly the good
I
part
guess
of
I
an
never
hour.
understood why that caused the issues everyone was having. They never really explored that, in my opinion. Why was there memory loss? Why was Susan acting out of character? They never explained any of that. By the solution.
And see, that's the problem with the episode. Is
Yeah.
that there's a
Okay.
lot of
I'll
cool
give you
things that are
that.
set up.
That's not a resolution, though. The resolution of why.
Well, yeah, the resolution
Yeah,
of the button
big
being
surprise,
stuck.
yes, and they're headed back to
Well,
the beginning of time. They're headed back to the Big
Yeah.
Bang, which is what I thought was really
Yeah.
incredible too. They're about to enter a point where time no longer exists.
Yes.
And if the TARDIS is the one that has to
it
make
is-
them realize that they're headed this direction.
it establishes the fact that the TARDIS is more than just
Yes,
a vehicle.
exactly. Yes, Sean had a revelation.
The TARDIS is so adamant about warning them and causing headaches and doing whatever it's doing to make all these strange things happen because it is about to enter its own time stream.
Well, sure, yeah,
Because the TARDIS blows up with the Big Bang.
yeah.
So it would be crossing its own... And it
Oh,
can't
I see. Well,
Yeah.
that works in a retcon
How cool is
way.
that?
That works in a retcon way, yeah.
Oh, shut up.
It would know too because it's,
Yeah.
It has memory. It
well,
remembers
not
everything.
it's not even a memory thing. Is everything
The
that is-
doctor's wife mentions
Yeah.
that
it's
everything at
all-
the same time.
Everything at the same
Oh,
time.
yeah.
The TARDIS doesn't differentiate time because it's all happening at one
But
time.
it keeps
for
a
you.
log for the travelers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I think
precisely.
that was my problem was that they don't give us enough detail on why is Susan wielding the knife and stabbing the chair and
The bed. It was a bed.
the bed. Well, yeah,
That-
the chaise lounge, whatever it was
Chaise
that came out of the
lounge, her
wall.
bed.
That was
It
cool.
her bed.
Interesting.
Which we get to see Susan's room.
Well,
We
get
saw
to-
everybody's
we
room
saw
early
a
Early
room.
on, yeah, we did see. We do. We saw their rooms as well.
They share the room.
That's right.
Which kind of leads you really to
Yeah.
believe how well the doctor liked Ian and
separate.
Barbara because
It's separate beds.
Well, yeah, they didn't have one giant bed. They each had individual twin beds that they couldn't even lay flat
They weren't
on.
bunk
they're
beds.
bunk beds.
Bunk beds are cool. It's a bed with a ladder.
But we get all these strange things that are happening, and it's very not what we're. These are people that we like, and they're acting in ways that we don't like. I mean, they're fighting,
Right.
and they're infighting, they're arguing, and they're violent, and all this strange stuff is going on. But yes, the end resolution where this is where they're going. This is the hint that's been dropped. This is why the clock is broken, and this is why that the
And
screen
then
is showing
that's
this brick
Barbara
white
that
flash.
figures it out.
Well, yeah, I like that aspect of it too, and it's all because of a simple spring. Now, prying it up off the cover where it's written in black Sharpie, "Fast return"
Yeah.
above it was like, okay. But there's just
I
something.
was-
At,
was
at this
fine with
point,
that,
wouldn't
too.
the fast return have taken them back to
The Daleks.
the Daleks? Yeah.
to
Why were they trying to go back there?
They just needed to go back somewhere. They had to get out of this stuck
Well,
motion.
no, because they
No, they pushed the fast return in order to try to return
Oh,
them
that's
home.
right. No,
but it would have taken them back to 100,000 or 200,000
200,000
BC.
BC is where they would have wound up, which is why, because the TARDIS thought his finger was still pressed
It kept
down on
going.
the switch, it passed that and continued back.
But why would they
So
push that to
linearly,
begin
it still
with?
makes sense too,
But why he would push that to begin with, thinking it was
because that was a safer spot than where they were at.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Agreed.
I got it.
Agreed.
It was, I'm not going
I'll
to take
give you
the
that.
time to set coordinates.
Right.
Let's
We're
get
just
the
going to go
heck
back.
out
We
of
know we're
Dodge.
at Earth, and we know we're safer than we are on
Skaro.
Skaro.
But yeah, there was a lot of not explaining
And
how everything else
You're
got
right.
to me.
I would have
That
loved.
was the problem
I would
that I
have
had
loved
with
for
it.
that to have played out. But after realizing that the TARDIS is malfunctioning based on going back and is stuck, I also got the impression that because the TARDIS does explode, the console explodes. You see
Yeah.
this poof and everybody's knocked down. There's clearly something that's happened to the TARDIS, and based on the fact of where it's headed and how it's trying to send this, essential warning sign out to them, that I always got the impression that the circumstances surrounding what they were doing was based on some malfunction with the TARDIS. Is that everybody has a psychic link to the TARDIS. We know that because they're
Right.
able to go outside of the TARDIS and understand people because the TARDIS translates the language in their head. It does, those simple things. And so I just, maybe I'm retconning this in my head, is that because the TARDIS is malfunctioning, because it's quickly reaching this point in time where time doesn't exist anymore, and it's a fail point, it's event horizon for the TARDIS essentially. That's malfunctioning what's going on within the TARDIS. So they're not quite in their right minds. The psychic link is messing them up and discombobulating them, and so it's a generalization.
Have they established the psychic link
They
at this
haven't, but that's what I'm saying is I don't have a problem with it not making that much sense. And yes, from a writing standpoint, somebody should have came in and said,
Why you look
"This
at me
is
when you
why."
say that?
No, but somebody should have came in and said, "This is why this is happening." I agree, but I don't. I think the reason I don't have a problem with it, and I like the aspect, is number one, you have to have that tension and that drama because everything is
yeah.
happening in one location with people we already know. And so you've
And
got
I love
to do
that
the,
aspect
you've
of
got
it.
to put
I just
everybody
wish they
in.
would have delivered the answers.
Yeah, the answer's not there, and I would agree. But I love this story. I think it's fantastic from the point of view that it all takes place in the TARDIS. We have very few Doctor Who stories that are entirely TARDIS bound, and so I really
I would
like
love to
that.
have a new series
Yeah, that would
TARDIS
be
bound.
fantastic. Well, we
Kind of
do.
did. In The Doctor's Wife.
No. They got on the asteroid.
But
Amy's Choice is the only one that you can believe
Technically.
completely takes place in the TARDIS because it was the little things that got into the console and then created the the psychic spores that created the illusions. They were actually in there laying down on the
technically,
floor the whole time, asleep. Well, dreaming. So I like that idea. I like the ending where you realize that it was the quick return and shooting past the point where they needed to go. And the clock being broke because of it, and then having to piece this
There was
puzzle.
a lot of great elements.
Piece this puzzle together, and Barbara being the one that figures this out, and the trust aspect changes between the Doctor and Barbara in this one,
and
which
he goes
I
to
loved.
apologize.
Yes, and he humbles himself, and he goes in and apologizes to Barbara for being the one that basically was grounded this whole time.
See, it almost,
more so than anybody.
It almost seems to me that this was a great idea that they could have done and
executed better.
That or some of the threats they expounded on because they needed to fill time.
I think this would have been a better half hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Than it was
That's
a
what I'm
full hour.
thinking.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree, and I think that there's a lot of that trying to figure out what's going on that goes far too long. And I would agree with you.
In order to fix the button being pushed too long, the TARDIS decides Susan should kill everyone. Because that will stop the TARDIS from moving.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, I guess that would make sense. That would stop the Doctor from pushing the button if Susan kills him.
See, I never got the impression that the TARDIS was causing them.
That may have just been Susan's reaction to whatever the TARDIS was.
Wow, she has
to,
some pent-up anger.
That's where I'm going with this. Thank you. You're helping to clarify my statement.
That makes
here,
sense.
Is that it's not necessarily the TARDIS telling Susan to kill; it's the TARDIS telling Susan, in it's the best way it knows how, to figure out what's going on here or to fix this problem, but it's translating wrong in Susan's head, and so she's not dealing with the.
It unclicks the
same thing with
sociopath.
Same thing with even Ian. He gets to a point where
he tries to strangle,
and it's almost a once it leaves Susan, it's in Ian. It really was like a possession thing. It was like the TARDIS was maybe psychically linking to somebody more so at one time or another.
Listen to me.
Yes, but the translation once you go into the human is completely wrong.
Yeah.
And so,
Maybe it's very, very similar situation to Doctor's wife. Maybe the TARDIS was actively trying to possess one of the crew,
perhaps,
to simply,
as in House did. In,
wham,
Yeah.
okay, stop. This is what we've got to do. You've got to do this, this, and this, but couldn't quite
Release the button.
Maybe it's the human or humanoid because the Doctor and Susan are even
sentient.
to a point. Yeah, but the sentient nature of the brain, the TARDIS is going into trying to possess them, but the brain is rejecting it at the same time. So there's a confusion and there's a
and that would totally make sense.
discombobulation.
If we are going to link this to Doctor's wife, they had to vacate that
I'm
body.
not even trying to link this to Doctor's wife, but go ahead.
But if we were,
Yeah.
they had to vacate that body first.
Yes,
Yeah.
Before
exactly.
the TARDIS could actually.
That's right.
bring
You're
it in.
absolutely right. You're
and
absolutely
because they're still a soul or whatever you
Whatever.
want
They're fighting over
It's
the
struggling
body.
with the.
it was not able
Okay.
to make that conversion. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That doesn't
that's
explain-
totally retcon because they don't explain that.
Oh,
And that's,
no.
Yeah.
But that's my maybe coming to peace with the episode, and because in art there's a lot of personal translation, and I think this is a very artistic piece.
Yeah,
I
it
think
really
it's well acted. It's a nicely conceived story, even though you don't have a lot of the answers that were needed to be there, and it just fits nicely in this little piece of Doctor Who. Even though I agree with Keith, it could have been even shorter than this, but it
it's
fits
not
nicely.
so much that it's bad that what it is. I will be honest. I've never really been a huge fan of the ghost ship story in science fiction.
it's done well, I've been a fan
that
of
there's
it.
something strange going on. The ship's been possessed. I've never really been a big fan of that type of storytelling because you've presented us with a mystery, which science fiction traditionally is not the medium for that.
Right.
But if they're told well, they can be very, very, very good.
Best
And you-
example, Out of Gas.
Okay, I thought for a minute you were going to go Lost, and I was going to fly across. I
There's
really
Well,
no-
that was an episode title of one of the Lost.
I know he's going Firefly.
Firefly,
That's fine.
yeah.
And I'm okay with that because you're right. The way that one was done was a very good. And even I'll be honest, even when that one started and we got just that little snippet at the prequel before the credits, I was like, ugh, it's that story. Because you just know that these
But
things
then
are
it
coming.
goes
But it goes in a
someplace
completely
Yeah, it was a
different
completely
one.
different.
And this one, the first episode was that story. I mean, there's something possessing the ship and the doors and closing and blah, blah, blah. But then it's not until you get to the resolution that you find out why all this stuff went on. It was like, okay. I think they did it a little bit better than some of the other ones that I've seen, certainly, as far as how all that got resolved. And I love the fact that it's Barbara. I love
Yeah.
that she is so adamant that she's not going to let the Doctor show her up at this point and put them off the ship. And it's refreshing in a way for Ian because he has been stepping up to that responsibility role in Unearthly Child and definitely Man of Action in the Daleks. For him to take that back seat in this one
Yeah.
and kind of be reduced to drooling invalid for a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
And-
It gives
and
Barbara
she
a
has
moment to shine.
Yeah.
It really does, and I like that about this one. I think they turn around and do that again later than in the Aztecs.
In the Aztecs.
Yeah, as well.
Well, and even she gets some moments to shine in Marco Polo.
Yeah, she does.
From what I saw.
No, absolutely. And you guys did go on and watch the.
We did watch
We
Marco
did.
Polo.
What'd you guys think?
Well, we watched the 30-minute
the 30-minute condensed version.
condensed
Yes,
recon
yes.
of Marco Polo.
There's no synopsis.
Basically, immediately after they fix the ship, although they don't, it busts again, and they land on the roof of the world.
What a
And
jalopy.
encounter Marco Polo, and go on a cross-China trek to meet, is it Kublai Khan?
I believe that's right. It's been a while since I listened to it because I haven't watched the 30-minute.
You should totally watch the
Yeah,
30-minute
I need
condensed.
to.
It's very cool.
definitely worth it. I get the how they filled that out to 7 parts.
I suspect we know how they filled it out 7 parts, and Keith and I were both groaning, going, "Man, could you?" I mean, not that again, all Who is good Who, we love it, but at the same time, can you imagine watching this? Because it would
This
be we're
would've
walking in the
almost been
desert, we got
more-
captured, we escaped, we ran out of water. We
There
had to
is a
go-
lot
I mean,
of that
there's
too.
just
yeah.
on and on.
Because
and on
I
and
have
on.
listened to the BBC radio version of this, which is the audio that exists with bridging narration in it, and it's fantastically done. I absolutely loved it. I don't think I could sit down and listen to the whole thing again anytime soon. But it brilliantly paints a picture of the way that they do it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's such a wonderful story, and listening to it made me even more sad that it's lost visually, that I won't get to see it.
I imagined it a bit more. I don't want to use the word excruciating.
Wow.
Than the Daleks, but 7 parts of the boring parts of Lord of the Rings.
I don't know that I would even go. I don't know that I would go
maybe
that far,
6 parts, because they had to spend at least one episode at Kublai Khan's castle.
Yeah, they spend more than that at Kublai.
Well, and see, that's based on the telesnaps.
Yeah.
Which explain to us what a telesnap is.
Which is a telesnap, and which is because there's photographs and then there's telesnaps.
Well, telesnaps are snaps that people have taken off of a television tube or a
that's what I
television
thought.
screen
Okay.
or a monitor of some sort.
Photograph was on set.
Photograph was on set photographs or publicity photographs, which they take to put out into magazines and whatnot.
So we were trying to figure. I mean, first of all,
not all of them are telesnaps.
No, not all
No,
of them.
no.
Are. It credited them in the end that there were telesnaps and photos.
It's great because you can't tell which is which.
No, telesnaps are actually taken from the frames that they're being broadcast on air.
I'm not complaining. Who takes a photo of their television? I mean, that to me is.
I may. Well.
I think it's along the same.
Well, never mind. We've done that with the rock band Doctors.
Yeah, it's
so.
The thing is, we have the technology now that you don't have to take a picture of your TV, because even as long ago as the 1970s, we had VCRs in which we could record and play back. But you have to remember, you talked about audio and how you recorded. Was it Dallas from week to week on an audio recording? It's the same concept. Is that people there was no way of capturing a moment from television in any other way than recording it on audio or taking a picture of your screen for the layman, for the common person at home.
So these were the original pirates.
Yeah, well,
they were going to take a bunch of telesnaps and record the audio of the broadcast, and then they were going to turn around and sell it on eBay later.
Had there been an eBay at the time, yes,
probably.
And I'm very grateful for those people that did do that, because we would have lost a lot more Doctor Who than we have. So
I don't know.
I wouldn't mind. Is a lot of the Lost in Time box set the 30-minute telesnaps or however long telesnaps?
I haven't seen all of the Lost in Times, but what they are is some of them are, there might be 4 episodes and 3 of them might be lost, so you get 1 episode, or you might get 2 out of 3 out of 4
so
episodes.
They don't bridge?
Well, what they'll do is they're done in a special way that they'll kind of fill in the gap, but some of them aren't done well enough. And
my impression with Lost, and I haven't watched it, but my impression with Lost in Time was it was just here's the episode that exists of this, and they don't explain what.
No, they do. Surrounding that, they do. I think there's like there's setups and there's cards between saying, this is what would happen to here to here, okay. But it's not in the way that they reconstructed Marco Polo for this set. It's more of a this episode's missing. This episode's it's more of a documentary of what you've got around the stuff they still have.
If there were audio, and
there's audio for everything.
If there's telesnaps or pictures, I wouldn't mind a box set of here's what's missing, condensed down to the necessities.
Quite frankly, I think what they've done is because To Entertain has been able to recover so much, and the BBC has been able to recover so much audio. I think that they released the Lost in Time stuff to get it out there, so that there were people chomping at the bit. As the technology comes along and the need for it, I think that they're realizing that there's a good chunk of stuff that, even though we're missing 3 episodes of something, only have 1 in existence, maybe someday we'll go back and reconstruct these in some way. Mm-hmm. And as they're doing with Reign of Terror, and they did with Invasion of Time. Now, they chose those because there was a good chunk of that, or just Invasion. There's a good chunk of that that exists.
Yeah. Right.
And so you only have to do the smaller parts. But I think that I see To Entertain eventually going back and saying, all right, we can do this with more of what we've lost as well, and putting those back together so that we get at least some way to enjoy that Doctor Who. And so I think that's why they haven't
done
a lot of this Marco Polo type stuff yet, because someday I think they hope maybe to do something better.
See, and I think I would enjoy some of these longer, older...
What you're saying is you'd rather have seen the Daleks this way, even though it all exists. I know where you're coming from.
Almost.
I know
Well,
where you're coming from.
It's just
The
from the
7 parts
standpoint that
just so much.
without doing 7 animated segments. Because I'm a firm believer, and that's the way to do it. If we have the audio for it, let's animate it.
I would agree.
But in lieu of doing that, what else can we do? Well, they do have the reconstructions where they've taken and they've put the telesnaps and the bridging narration and done what they can with the audio that they've got and put that story out there. I kind of agree with
And those
Keith.
are
As much
hobbyists that do that.
Yeah,
These aren't official groups that do these.
as much as a fan as I am, I don't think I could sit down and watch 7 episodes of Marco Polo, all telesnaps and photos with that audio.
not.
I sort of agree, but then again, I'm the one that's listened to all 7 parts with bridging narration. So,
Right.
Now, if it were all
although I
animated,
was in
I
the
might
car
be able
traveling at the time, it's much easier to do.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's it.
that I could see.
Would you be able to sit down and watch all 7 episodes of Marco Polo animated?
Oh, yeah, in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a
I've
New
watched-
York minute, I would do that.
I've watched some of the recons. 10th Planet's the most recent one I watched. Now, there's only one episode of that missing, and that's the last one. And I know when I got to that one, because it was Cybermen and the first 3 episodes were so good, I enjoyed. I thought when I got to the recon of that, because I've seen ones where most of it's been reconned, especially some of the Troughton stuff that I wanted to see and know what happened. But when I got to that one, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sit here for and it went by just like that.
Yeah.
It was fantastic to watch.
We
It was
should
a
add
recon,
that one to
so
the list if it's Cybermen.
the Cybermen, yeah, absolutely. But it only exists in fan recons right now. So I'll be the first to admit it's not
It's a fan.
yeah, it's not a official BBC copy because it's never been released. Now I don't feel guilty having that or having procured that because
They never released it.
they're not losing any money from me. Now,
Yeah.
if they were to release it on DVD and then I went out and downloaded something like that, I would feel that I was cheating them out of some sort of money at that point. But anyway, so when I got to there, and it wasn't so bad, but I don't know, maybe it's because of my vast enjoyment of Doctor Who that I don't care how I'm getting it, whether it's just telesnaps or not.
Well, realistically,
I don't have a
a telesnap episode is not all that different than a Big Finish audio with pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the same
Here,
concept.
Sean and I grew up. Now, these were only 30 minutes at a time, if that. Sean and I grew up with what were called audio slides. I'm sure there's some listeners that remember these as well. You didn't always have access to in grade school. Maybe you didn't. I didn't even grow up with these, but in grade school, you didn't always have access to a film projector that had audio on it. What they had was basically reminding me of those picture books that you flip through and listen to the record and it beeped and you turn the page.
Yeah.
They had these
Oh, yeah.
projectors
I remember
that you
those.
would put a film strip
remember
in,
those, too.
and it was a cassette tape. You put it in there. You started. Actually, the first one I ever saw was actually a record, when it beeped, you had one person assigned to hit the little thing and it advanced the slide. That was it. I remember watching Puff the Magic Dragon for the first time that way. I didn't see it, the cartoon that used to air on ABC or whatever it was. The first time I ever saw Puff the Magic Dragon was that way.
Interesting.
And it was just slides. And so I'm already accustomed to that kind of thing anyway growing up. I grew up that way. So that to me, that's kind of the same thing. Is you're listening to the audio as you're going through pictures. Now,
On a real quick-
granted, the problem is you see a lot of the same pictures over and over again, and that gets a little redundant. But
on a real quick tangent, for the longest time,
we don't do quick tangents here, Keith. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll go on a long tangent. For the longest time, I don't know. I don't think I still have it, but I had a cassette tape of of one of those picture books on tape of the very first episode of Thundercats.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
I think they were called read-along books. Is that what they were?
Yeah, I think they were read-along
read-alongs.
books. It was the
You put
Thundercats read-along books.
You're really not gaining any points with me tonight. You know that, right?
I had to point that out because I knew Sean would
Is there anything else
jump
you
at the
guys wanna-
opportunity to listen to
Anything
that.
else we want to talk about?
I enjoyed the
Polo?
Marco Polo story immensely. I really
The
thought
shortened version was fantastic.
Yeah, for what we saw of it, I thought it was good.
Imagine them now when they show it, because I imagined it this way. When they actually load up the TARDIS, Is it laying down? Did
No,
they have a
it's
picture of
standing
it?
up.
Oh, it is standing up. Because when I listened to the audio, they made it sound like this thing was laying down on the back of the chair, or not chariot, but whatever the
wagon.
The wagon was at the time. And I thought, ooh, how bizarre that would be to see the TARDIS, laying horizontally instead of standing vertically.
Yeah, no, it's standing vertically with
okay.
big straps.
Big straps over the
that
sides.
tied it down.
Well done.
The best bit for me was when they get to Kublai Khan's palace and he's playing backgammon with the doctor. And the doctor makes some. He asks him. He says, "So what am I into you now for?" And the doctor starts listing off. Well, you 7 goats and 4 this and all of the mineral rights south of the blah 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 river. And he just keeps going. And I'm 6 provinces and the Yanks say, "Oh yeah, well they're going to be a little upset over that." And Kublai Khan's like not fazed by this at all.
Yeah.
The doctor has won half the kingdom in these games of backgammon, and then very slyly puts out well, if you'd be interested in playing one more. Well, what would you want to wager? Well, I'd be willing to wager all of this in exchange for my TARDIS. And Kublai Khan goes, all right. And then he comes back in, and it's just like, oh, that's genius. This is so cool. This is going to be. And he walks back to the room, and they're like, and he lost. Here's a piece of paper that he gave him with it. He gave him a certificate of authenticity dollar bill or something.
Right.
I was like, are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
You lost?
After winning all that, that was a great.
And the funny thing is that Hartnell was laughing. The doctor was like,
He was taking it in stride. It was
what are you
just
going to
like,
do?
yeah, what are you gonna do?
That part was great. I thought Marco was a very, very well drawn character. He was very interesting. I would have liked to have seen that.
And the woman who was traveling with them, who was going to be sold,
the one that was sold off to be married.
Yeah, to the old woman or the old man, and didn't want to marry the 75, the man that could be her grandfather. Right. Which I thought was very interesting.
And doesn't that set up so much for the Aztecs when all of a sudden the shoe's on the other? Because Susan.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine there was probably a lot more to that they cut out of the condensed version. We got just a little piece of it.
No, I think so. From what I remember, yeah.
But I imagine there was a lot more with Susan kind of befriending her and kind of rallying against, well, you don't have to go marry him if you don't want. Right. She probably is the one that talked her into running away.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. But then all of a sudden we get to the Aztecs and the shoe's on the other foot. And Susan's in that situation where she's going to be married off.
Was the Aztecs number 5?
No, Marinus.
I think that's right. Keys of Marinus.
Keys of Marinus, and then Aztecs.
Okay.
So it was shortly thereafter.
It seemed like there was one more in there too.
Nope. Aztecs is 6.
Aztecs is
Okay.
6.
So yeah, it must be Keys.
That's the other thing that I think does kind of lend to the genius, if you will, of Edge of Destruction. Is we have our pilot with Unearthly Child, then we have 7 parts to the Daleks, 2-part Edge of Destruction. And then a 7-part Marco Polo. So it really would have nicely broken up those big,
Keys
huge
is
chunk stories.
6 episodes, right? Or is it 5? It's not a traditional 4, I don't think. I think it's a little longer than 4.
It might be at 5 then.
Well, and it seems
and
the
then
fact
the Aztecs are 4. Is 4.
That much like Troughton, each one led into the other. At the end of An Unearthly Child, we see the petrified forest and the radiation meter. Yep. I can't remember.
At the end of the Daleks, the console explodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So which
leads right into Edge of Destruction.
And at the end of Edge of Destruction, they land and go out into the snow, and Susan says, "Hey, look, a giant footprint." And they included that clip in the beginning of the 30 minutes of Marco Polo.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, and I find that interesting that they all link together, much like Troughton did.
Well,
that
it
started out very early
serial,
on.
but not
serial, but not.
But still had their own story arcs.
Yeah.
As well, so.
I had forgotten about that. I really liked at the end of Edge of Destruction when they've landed and it's snowy and everybody's okay. We're all better now, and we're sorry for the mean things that we said, and we walk arm in arm to the door, and Susan bursts back into the room going, "Look, snow!" and throws a handful of it. I mean, didn't even bother to make a snowball.
That's right.
Just had this whole lump of snow and goes, "Look!" Poof, and runs off, giggling,
and it lands on the console.
Shorted out the spring. Now,
doesn't she know how temperamental
I'm curious because I've always felt that Ian and Barbara obviously have a relationship. Mm-hmm. It just feels that way.
I think so,
but they don't. They really, and she even calls him Mr. Chesterton at one point.
Here I don't think they do. Now I think you've said in the past that you felt that maybe they had something going on even prior to this.
Yeah.
I've never felt that way. It's not until we get even closer to, is it the Chase was their last?
Yeah.
It's not until we get later in their storyline that I felt like they were really. I mean, the Aztecs, I think they are. You're seeing more than a friends relationship as
Yeah.
it goes on. But I never got the impression that.
Well, and maybe it's just because I had
item.
seen a handful of Ian and Barbara episodes before I saw Unearthly
Maybe
Child.
that's why,
So
yeah. Maybe
that
so.
surprised me when they came at it and they were very, very fresh into it. It almost, at no point in time during Unearthly Child did we get a discussion of what are you cooking for dinner. I don't know. I thought maybe we'd go out tonight, and I kind of expected there to be.
We talked about remember Barbara has this sort of infatuation with one of the Thals, and there's no jealousy on
Ian's
part at all.
It almost seemed to me that it was kind of a flirting, hey, I kind of like you, kind of thing, but nothing serious in an Unearthly Child.
Now we know they do end up together because
spoilers.
Well, didn't you guys watch that Sarah Death to the Doctor?
No.
Never mind.
Huh?
Thanks.
They do
Glenn.
some nice name dropping at the end of the episode, and it's
Really?
Which
fantastic.
episode is it?
Death to the Doctor, the one with Joe Grant and
It's the Sarah
Sarah
Jane
Jane,
Smith fourth
yeah.
season.
Oh,
it's
really?
Matt Smith.
Oh, I haven't got there yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
They do some nice name dropping.
Oh,
Cool.
Anyway, go ahead.
see, I was waiting to watch Sarah Jane Smith in order.
Yes, you should. I didn't. I went through and
Watch the David Tennant,
the David Tennant
Matt
ones
Smith.
and the Matt Smith ones, but I am going through them
You're such a
eventually.
ship
I'm
jumper.
going through them eventually in order, but I've only done most of the first season. So
Was which one had the brig in it?
that
you
one I
watch that
haven't
one?
seen. No, that's
That's the end of season 2, isn't it?
Revenge of the Bane, I believe.
I believe that's the end of season 2. I can't wait to get to that one.
Anyway, anything else we want to talk about on the?
I'm good.
I'm
we didn't.
good with the
we didn't get
episodes.
into a lot of the extras on
The-
this
the
set,
one-
but we rarely do.
Yeah,
but
the
I think
only
Sean
one that
wants
I
to
would
talk,
mention
yeah.
is the I don't remember
No,
what
they're
it's
the
called
spoofs.
now.
I mean, it just
It's listed Doctor Who spoofs.
Yeah.
Or
you called it Doctor Who Tonight or something.
somebody else had said that this was a show called Doctor Who Tonight or
Oh.
Doctor Who UK or something along those lines. And there were 4 segments that were on the Edge of Destruction in the bonus features that basically were little skit comedy specials. I don't even know what show they were done for.
and they look like maybe they were done in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They had a very Kids in the Hall feel to them. To me.
yeah, a little bit.
First one, very funny, I thought, when the guy comes in for the pitch session.
Pitches the premise of Doctor Who.
To pitch the premise of Doctor Who. How long do you anticipate this show lasting? 26 years. Okay. And then the second 2 were all right. The one with
Okay.
Mark Gatiss playing the Doctor, I actually thought was
That one was
funny.
really great. And then the last one
The last one
one's
was
was
really
fantastic
funny.
too. The second one I was kind of
Which we will, if you haven't seen this, see these because there's a neat cameo in the last one that you just
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything.
I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that hasn't seen them because it's a wonderful reveal.
It's called The Kidnappers.
Yeah, it's a wonderful reveal. So
So
anyway,
but other than that, I think we're good. Do you have anything else you want to add there, Keith?
I'm good.
what's coming up next week, Sean?
Next week we've got Friday Night Who coming up, and as it is October, and we are getting close to a certain time of year in October, a certain holiday, or well, it's not really a vacation.
Columbus Day? Oh no, that's tomorrow.
No, I don't have to work tomorrow though. So that's a good thing. We're talking about Halloween.
Halloween.
And
All Hallows Eve.
All Hallows Eve, or if you're Neil Gaiman,
Devil's
it's
Night.
All Hallows Read.
Read.
He does a thing where they go out to the bookstores and they buy children's books at a discount, and they give out books for
That's very
Halloween
cool.
instead
I
of
saw that.
candy.
Yeah.
And I think that is a genius
It is-
idea.
it is
So
genius.
I'll go on record as promoting that.
That's better than giving out like toothbrushes and
Yeah. All Hallows Read.
I hated those people. Books would have been cool.
Apples.
Toothbrushes were stupid.
Yeah, if we got a tooth, I'm ashamed to admit this. If we got a toothbrush in the old days, we went back to your house later.
With eggs and toilet paper.
You got the tricks.
Yeah.
You didn't give the treats. You got the tricks.
Eggs
Yeah.
and toilet paper.
Plastic forks in the yard were popular.
Never thought that's good. I like that.
Stick them down in there, and
well, and if they're not careful when taking it out, that
they break off.
Kills.
Yeah.
And then you have
grass.
little tiny tines stuck in there still too. Anyway,
I
so
never
we
said I
got
was an angel growing up.
we've got our Halloween
Spectacular.
this
Halloween
build up.
Spectacular, which I have a title for that episode, but I can't tell you on air because I'm so excited.
And then we're doing for next week's episode. We're doing,
Well, for Friday Night Who for this week, we'll be doing The Brain of Morbius. So we'll be returning to Tom Baker, for those of you that were excited to get out of that era. Sorry, but we kind of had to go back for Halloween. And then the show next week is going to be, theoretically, our retrospective of the Moffat years. We're going to cover both season 5 and 6. We've kind of let it settle for a little bit, had a little time to think on it, percolate, and kind of delve in and see what we thought worked and what didn't, and what possible things could be lying ahead for the third season of Matt Smith.
Wild speculations
And maybe there might be
such.
some envelopes.
maybe we'll do some predictions. and
maybe.
stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this week, guys. We've already gone longer for something that we thought was going to be a short show than we thought we would. So
Where we at?
2:15 right now,
that's
which
not too
is
bad.
a little more than
That's long for us. Well, it's not
Well,
long for us, but it's long for
we're
this.
almost
long
2:15.
for
We're
this,
coming
but
about 2:15.
We did
had some
cover
tangents.
We tangent it a bit.
4 episodes.
That's true. Anyway, that's going to do it for us this week. Until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
Be seeing you.
You could put a little more emphasis on the BC in you. You didn't sound really happy to see him.
Be seeing you.
That just sounded fake. Do it again.
Be seeing you.
Put your hand up to your ear like a radio. Be seeing you.
Be seeing you.
That one sounded fake too, so we'll go with the other one.
All right.
Good night.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.